Chapter 2157. 2157 was at loggerheads. Roar, roar, roar. The divine dragons roared. The 9 wind divine dragons roared at the sky at the same time. They rushed out of the water and flew into the void. Wang Xian sat on the dragon throne with the experts of the Dragon Palace following behind him. There were a total of 20,000 members of the Dragon Palace. They exuded a terrifying aura. The divine dragons soared into the sky and their roars resounded across the entire planet. Those are the powerhouses of the Dragon Palace. What are they trying to do? Hiss, look. The 9 divine beasts are holding on to the Dragon King while the powerhouses of the Dragon Palace are behind them. What are they trying to do? On the planet, countless people raised their heads and looked into the void. Their faces were filled with shock. Are they trying to escape? Some people muttered as their eyes flickered. No, they stopped in the void. Soon they found something was wrong. 9 giant creatures that were at least 10,000 meters in size stopped in the void. Their huge dragon wings were flapping slightly. More than 20,000 experts of the Dragon Palace stood in the void. They stared at the place in front of them as if they were waiting. They are waiting for the Thunder God Lord, they are waiting for the arrival of the eternal Thunder God Lord and the others. Suddenly, a sharp and shocked voice sounded, causing the expressions of some people around to change slightly. The Dragon Palace is going to fight the eternal Thunder God? The Thunder God Lord is personally on the expedition. This is an eternal God Lord. The Dragon Palace has the confidence to resist the attack of the God Lord. The Dragon Palace must have some trump card, otherwise how could they be so arrogant and directly welcome the arrival of the Thunder God Lord and the others in the void? Everyone on the Northern Expedition Free Trade Planet was discussing in shock. At this moment, they understood clearly that the Dragon Palace was prepared to fight against the Eternal Thunderbolt. If the Dragon Palace really managed to block it, then the entire northern region will be changed. Some people's eyes sparkled as they muttered. Their faces were filled with shock. Dragon King, according to the information we received, the Eternal Thunderbolt should arrive within an hour. In the void, Prime Minister Gue came to Wang Xian's side and reported to him. Dragon King, I have ordered Wuxia to attack the Steel Planet. The corner of Enlai's mouth curled up slightly. His entire body was filled with fighting spirit as he reported to Wang Xian. Okay. Wang Xian nodded his head faintly. His gaze was fixed on the void in front of him as he waited quietly. In the vast void, 2 gigantic Thunderhorn divine beasts were pulling a Thunder Battle Valley as they galloped. On the Battle Valley, many experts were standing on it. At the front, the Thunder God Lord was leaning on his throne, staring at the front with cold eyes. Suddenly, Thunder God, who was standing beside the Thunder God Lord, was slightly stunned and took out his communication stone plate. When he saw the information on it, he slightly narrowed his eyes. Lord God Lord, the Dragon Palace is actually waiting for our arrival in the sky above the planet. Thunder God reported to Thunder God Lord in a low voice. Yes. Thunder God Lord's face didn't change at all. This time he would let the Dragon Palace know, and the entire northern region know the consequences of offending eternal thunder. Cut the weeds and roots, leaving no one alive. Stars flashed one by one, and the speed of the peak deity realm Thunderhorn divine beast was extremely terrifying. Master God, we're almost there. After nearly an hour, a Thunder God squinted his eyes and stared forward with killing intent. Rumble. Rumble. The 2 Thunderhorn divine beasts pulling the Thunder Battle Valley stared ahead with their huge eyes and roared at the same time. Crackle. At this moment, the entire Thunder Battle Valley was completely covered by lightning. The sound of the lightning covered an area of more than 1,000 kilometers. The 2 peak stage deity-level Thunderhorn divine beasts pulled the Thunder Battle Valley as if they were stepping out of the wilderness. The sound spread throughout the surrounding void space. They're here. Hiss, what a terrifying aura. 2 divine beasts pulling a Thunder Valley. At this moment, on the Northern Expedition Free Trade Planet that was tens of millions of kilometers away, everyone's expression changed when they heard the roar and felt the terrifying aura. Tens of billions of people on the planet looked up. Some of them even flew into the void and looked over in astonishment. 2 divine beasts at the peak of the godly state of a few thousand meters in size were dragging a valley that was covered by lightning. It was truly shocking. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wang Xian sat on the dragon throne. He stood up slowly when he saw the arrival of the eternal thunderclap. He had to be cautious when facing a godly master. He had to take him seriously. He swept his gaze across everyone in eternal thunderclap and looked at the four members with the combat strength at the peak of the godly state. A faint smile appeared on his face. I thought they would have a big battle formation. Now it seems that eternal thunderclap is only SOSO. Wang Xian stood in front of the dragon throne and looked at the middle-aged man sitting on the divine seat of War Valley. He said faintly. His voice was directly transmitted into the ears of the God Lord and everyone in eternal thunderclap. Impudent. A roar filled with killing intent was emitted from the mouth of a thunder god. Boom, boom, boom. The two thunderhorn divine beasts stared at Wang Xian ferociously and let out a deafening roar. This roar was like the roar of a thunderstorm. A bunch of ants, how dare you waste my time? This is unforgivable. The thunder god lord swept his gaze across Wang Xian and the rest. His eyes were filled with contempt as he spoke coldly. When he swept his gaze across the entire planet, he could sense that there was no existence on the same level as him. Without a god-level existence, how dare they provoke his eternal thunderbolt? So powerful. When everyone on the free trade planet heard the God of Thunder's words, their mouths gaped slightly. This was completely disregarding the Dragon Palace. Roar, roar, roar. Roar, roar, roar. When the 9 divine wind dragons heard the roar of the divine beast opposite them, they roared in unison. A wave of dragon might filled the air. Even a bunch of ants like us could make the Thunder God Lord come here personally. Looks like the eternal thunderbolt is only SOSO. When Wang Xian heard the contempt of the Thunder God Lord, he said with a faint smile. Tit for tat. The thunderhorn divine beast roared while the divine wind dragon roared. In an instant, waves of terrifying aura surged into the sky. At the center, the airflow seemed to have solidified. Everyone could sense the terrifying atmosphere. The people on the planet below held their breaths as they stared at the battle of the northern region for the century. Boom. Crackle. When Wang Xian's voice faded, a terrifying bolt of lightning shot out from the eyes of the Thunder God Lord. He stood up immediately and the purple lightning exploded in the void. The lightning seemed to have teleported and appeared in front of the Dragon Palace a kilometer away in an instant. A bolt of lightning flashed across the entire Dragon Palace. TSK, the Thunder God Lord is really arrogant. Do you really think that we dare to challenge you, the eternal Thunder God, just because we don't have any strength? Beside Wang Xian, the dark blazing demonic dragon laughed coldly when he saw the Thunder God Lord who wanted to wipe them out. He stared at the Thunder God and waved his arm. A ball of darkness engulfed the Thunder God instantly. Chapter 2158. 2158-2158's fame spread far and wide. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Crackle, crackle, crackle. A ball of darkness covered the lightning bolt. The purple lightning bolt struggled violently in the darkness, causing the darkness to change its shape. Slowly, the lightning and darkness dissipated. Seeing someone from the Dragon Palace block the Thunder God Lord's attack, all the experts on the planet were slightly shocked. As expected, the Dragon Palace isn't courting death, but they have a trump card. Everyone thought to themselves as they looked over with flickering eyes. Lord God Lord, that young man should be the one who killed 9 thunder in an instant. When the 2 thunder gods saw that Enlai had actually blocked their Lord God Lord's attack, their expressions tensed up as they stared fixedly at him. However, the Thunder God Lord didn't pay any attention to them. He also stared fixedly at Enlai. His purple pupils shot out a terrifying luster. It's you? You beast. A low roar came from his mouth. Everyone could sense the Thunder God Lord's anger and killing intent. Oh. The 2 thunder gods were slightly startled as they stared at Enlai. Dog, watch your words. Don't you see how many thunder gods are beside you? Enlai heard the Thunder God Lord's words and said coldly to him. In front of everyone's eyes, he directly called the Thunder God Lord a dog. In the hundreds of thousands of years, he was probably the first person to do so. Hiss, what? What is this situation? When everyone saw this scene, their faces were filled with shock. Some of the people on the planet looked at Enlai, who was standing in front of the dragon throne, their eyes filled with shock. He actually called the Thunder God Lord a dog. And the Thunder God Lord obviously knew that young man. It's you, Dark Demon Dragon, Dark Demon Dragon. At this moment, the 2 thunder gods guessed Enlai's identity and roared with their eyes wide open. I didn't expect your dragon palace to be in cahoots with the demon dragon of the devil den. One of the thunder god's expression changed slightly as he roared in a stern voice. Jia I and Lai know that I've committed too many sins. I've abandoned the dark side to join the Dragon King's subordinates and join the Dragon Palace to create a harmonious world. What demon dragon of the devil den? In the future, call me the demon dragon of the Dragon Palace. Jia. And Lai smiled and said when he heard the thunder god's words. Devil den? Dark devil dragon? On the planet, everyone heard their conversation and looked shocked. They stared at Lai. They had never thought that he was the dark devil dragon from the Devil Denver. The dark devil dragon that caused eternal shocking thunder to suffer heavy losses. Abandoning the dark side and joining the Dragon King's side, what's going on? The Dragon Palace subdued the dark devil dragon. Hearing Lai's words, everyone was stunned. Dark demon dragon, I let you escape last time. This time I'll hang your head on my eternal divine kingdom. The thunder god lord stared at Lai, his eyes shooting out a terrifying killing intent. Because of this dark demon dragon, eternal thunder had lost more than 10 thunder gods. They had lost close to 10 million disciples. Furthermore, all the treasures of a planet had been plundered. He had even been injured because of this. However, this time he decided that even if he had to pay a heavy price, he would still kill them. Crackle crackle. Violent lightning exploded around him, and a terrifying energy was brewing in his body. Buzz buzz buzz. However, at this moment, the communication stone plate on one of the thunder gods beside him suddenly trembled non-stop. His expression changed slightly, and he immediately opened the communication stone plate. When he saw the information on it, his expression changed drastically. Lord God is in trouble, the steel planet has been invaded by demonic forces. His expression was extremely unsightly as he growled at the thunder god lord in a low voice. Oh! The thunder god lord turned his head, and a terrifying luster shot out from his eyes. He slowly stared at the dark blazing demon dragon, and his face was slightly malevolent. Beast, I will kill you within 10 minutes. He roared furiously. There was an explosion in the surroundings and he disappeared instantly. Purple lightning covered his entire body. A thunderbolt that covered thousands of kilometers appeared out of nowhere in the void above him. The thunderbolt seemed as though it was going to destroy the world. It went straight for everyone in the Dragon Palace. Upon seeing this scene, even Wang Xian took a deep breath. How terrifying. Roar, roar, roar. At this moment, Lai, who was at the side, let out a roar. He raised his head and his entire body underwent a terrifying transformation. The dragon head, dragon body, and dragon tail slowly covered his entire body. His blood-red dragon eyes stared at the thunder in the sky. He opened his dragon mouth and spat out a ball of dragon breath. The dark dragon breath flew directly into the sky. Roar, roar. At the same time, he swayed his body, which was over 20,000 meters long, and directly attacked the thunder god lord. Die for me. The thunder god lord waved his hands, and a lightning spear and a lightning hammer intersected together, directly releasing a bolt of intersecting lightning. The lightning attacked Lai. Jinglei, do you think I'm the same old man that you bullied the last time? Lai roared and stretched out his dragon claw. A terrifying black light covered it as he clawed at the lightning. Ka ka ka. The lightning was caught by him. He opened his mouth and spat it out, causing the lightning to dissipate. Although he had used 2 moves to break through the Thunder God Lord's attack, he was already very strong to be able to do this. Oh! When the Thunder God Lord saw this scene, his pupils constricted slightly, and an embarrassed expression appeared on his face. He could sense that this devil dragon was much stronger than the last time. Last time, this devil dragon could only flee, but this time he could contend against it. Damn it! His face revealed an anxious expression. If he could not kill it in a short period of time, then Wuxia would wreak havoc in the entire Eternal Shocking Thunder. Now that all the Eternal Thunderclap experts were here, the base camp behind them would be turned into ruins. The foundation that had existed for hundreds of thousands of years would be destroyed in an instant. We must settle the battle as soon as possible. The Thunder God Lord was burning with rage. Kill him. Today, let our Dragon Palace experience the eternal thunderclap that has intimidated the northern region for hundreds of thousands of years. At this moment, Wang Xian's voice sounded from below. When he saw Eternal Thunderclap being restrained by Enlai, he immediately released the order to attack. Enlai was no match for Eternal Thunderclap. Therefore he had to make good use of this period of time when he was being restrained. Only in this way would the Thunder God Lord be afraid and yield. Roar roar kill? The group of experts from the Dragon Palace stared at Eternal Thunderclap and roared furiously. Ao Qi, Ao Xingmu, Ao Qi Tian, and the other 4 peak stage godly state members flew directly towards Eternal Shocking Thunder. They carried a terrifying killing intent. Kill? Behind them, the 20,000 members of the Dragon Palace followed closely behind. They were not afraid of challenging Eternal Shocking Thunder. Wang Xian sat on the dragon throne and stared coldly ahead. There were only 4 peak stage godly state experts on the opposite side. He didn't need to make a move. He just needed to sit here and look down. Chapter 2159. 2159-2159's fame spread far and wide. They're fighting. When everyone on the planet saw the disciples of the Dragon Palace attacking Eternal Shocking Thunder, they were shocked. They looked up and stared blankly. Shit. However, at this moment, when the 2 thunder gods of Eternal Shocking Thunder saw the experts of the Dragon Palace attacking them and felt the terrifying power of Ao Qitian, Ao Xingmu, Ao Qi, and the Berserk Dragon species, their expressions changed drastically. The 7 people of Ao Qitian and the others who were the first to rush over were all exuding the aura of peak godly state. The terrifying aura rushed toward them violently. Behind the 7 people, the members of the Dragon Palace also had powerful auras. 7 peak godly state experts, 7 of them are peak godly state experts. One thunder god couldn't help but roar in a low voice. 7 peak godly state experts were no longer something they could withstand. Once the 7 peak godly state experts of the Dragon Palace charged over, Eternal Thunderclap wouldn't be able to withstand them at all. What? How can the Dragon Palace be so strong? The faces of all the disciples of the Eternal Legion changed slightly. As the most powerful army of Eternal Thunderclap, they believed that they could resist all the armies in the Endless Region. However, they were definitely no match for the 7 peak godly state forces. However, Eternal Thunderclap had suffered heavy losses and only had 2 thunder gods. Look, the Dragon Palace has 7 peak godly state experts. Hiss, the Dragon Palace is much stronger than Eternal Thunderclap. Eternal Thunderclap only has 2 thunder gods. Eternal Thunderclap is going to be in big trouble. The Thunder God Lord is being held back. They are no match for the Dragon Palace at all. The people on the free trade planet opened their mouths slightly when they heard Thunder God's words. They were dumbfounded. There were 7 peak godly state experts in the Dragon Palace. And this is even before the Dragon King makes a move. The Dragon King's strength is definitely not weaker than peak godly state experts. Some people thought to themselves as they looked at the towering Dragon King who had 2 horns on his head while sitting on the dragon throne. At this moment they felt a strong sense of reverence in their hearts. Roar, take this. The Berserk Ao Qitian held the sea-pacifying divine needle in his hand and smashed it at everyone in the Eternal Legion. The blood-red energy pillar covered an area of more than 100 kilometers and fell from the sky. Boom boom boom. A few peak godly state Berserk dragon species also raised their cudgels and smashed them. Following closely behind were streaks of blood-red lightning and thorns that filled the sky. Dodge dodge. The 2 thunder gods saw these attacks and shouted with terrified faces. Dodge dodge dodge. The faces of the Eternal Army's disciples also changed drastically as they hurriedly dodged to the side. Boom, boom, boom. However, it was not so easy to completely dodge the attacks of peak god level experts. In an instant, 5,000 to 6,000 Eternal Army disciples were hit by one attack after another. This was because the Eternal Army was the most powerful army in the entire Eternal Thunderclap. Even so, 5,000 disciples was a direct loss of 1/10 of the Eternal Army's strength. Damn it. When the 2 thunder gods saw this scene, their expressions changed drastically. If this continued, they would be able to kill all of the 7 peak godly state experts in 5 minutes. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, the 2 thunder gods saw 4 peak godly state members of the Dragon Palace attacking them. Their pupils constricted slightly, and their faces were unsightly. Roar, roar, roar. Even Eternal Thunderclap wants to fight against our Dragon Palace. The other disciples of the Dragon Palace rushed over with cold and disdainful expressions. At its peak, Eternal Shocking Thunder had more than 20 peak Divine Realm experts, but now only 2 of them were left. This power was far weaker than the Dragon Palaces. In other words, the current Eternal Shocking Thunder relied on the Thunder God Lord alone. Damn it, our Thunder God Lord has fallen too many times. We are not a match for the Dragon Palace at all. The Eternal Army disciples roared in low voices with ugly expressions. Lord God Lord, save us. A deity-level powerhouse could not help but ask the Thunder God Lord for help in the sky. If they did not ask for help, they would all be killed soon. Cough, cough, Dragon Palace, you deserve to die. The Thunder God Lord looked down and saw the huge gap between his subordinates and the Dragon Palace. He was so angry that thunder exploded all over his body. With such a huge gap, their Eternal Thunder disciples would soon be killed. Heavenly Thunder. With a gloomy face, he raised the thunder hammer in his right hand and smashed it down heavily. Boom, boom, boom. Bolts of lightning struck toward Ao Qitian and the others. Jinglei, you don't think much of me and lie. With a cold growl, the dark fierce demonic dragon swung his huge tail and swept toward Jinglei in the sky region. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying collision sounded, which made the face of the Thunder God Lord change slightly. His body moved, and he directly swooped down towards the members of the Dragon Palace below. He wanted to kill the experts of the Dragon Palace first. Roar, roar, roar. However, at this time, the dark blazing demonic dragon's enormous body directly appeared behind him, and its dragon claws directly clawed towards him. Get lost. The Thunder God Lord roared furiously, and the thunder hammer and thunder spear in his hand crossed together. 3 forks of lightning struck towards the dark blazing demonic dragon. Roar, roar, roar. Jinglei, if you attack the disciples of the Dragon Palace, I will attack the disciples of your Eternal Thunder. Seeing the Thunder God Lord wanting to kill the other members of the Dragon Palace with a murderous look on his face, Enlai moved his body and released a terrifying power toward the Eternal Thunder. Huff, huff, huff. Seeing Enlai's attack, the Thunder God Lord's breathing quickened. Wong. He moved and instantly blocked the Eternal Legion's front, blocking all of Enlai's attacks. The Thunder God Lord's gaze was fixed on Enlai, his eyes filled with violent killing intent. He also knew that if he wanted to kill the demon dragon whose strength had increased once again, he would have to pay a heavy price. Moreover, this would still require a few hours. However, all the members of the Eternal Army would be killed during this period. Even the planets behind Eternal Thunderclap would be ravaged by evil spirits. Enlai stared coldly at the Lord of Thunderclap and did not continue to attack. The members of the Dragon Palace also stopped and stared coldly at Eternal Thunderclap and the rest. Roar, roar. Hee hee, Lord of Thunderclap, our Dragon Palace wants half of the northern region. I wonder if Eternal Thunderclap has any objections. Wang Xian smiled when he saw this situation. The 9 divine wind dragons pulled the dragon throne and floated in front of Lord of Thunderclap. Wang Xian looked at him and asked calmly. It was impossible to destroy Eternal Thunderclap now. However, his Dragon Palace wanted half of the northern region. This represented the rise of the Dragon Palace. Chapter 2160. 2160 Dynasty's fame spread far and wide. My Dragon Palace wants half of the northern region. When these words rang out, the eyes of everyone on the free trade planet below sparkled. Their gazes were fixed on the Dragon King and the Thunder God Lord. No matter what, the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace stood proudly in front of the Thunder God Lord and said these words. There weren't many people in the entire boundless galaxy who could do it. At this moment, it was definitely a scene that could be recorded in history for the northern region. The eternal thunderbolt which had dominated the entire northern region for hundreds of thousands of years was facing a challenge from a force for the first time. Palipala. The Thunder God Lord stared at Wang Xian. His eyes were filled with fury and killing intent. Roar. The dark blazing demonic dragon let out a low roar and circled around Wang Xian to prevent the Thunder God Lord from launching a sudden attack. Huff, huff. The Thunder God Lord scanned the entire Dragon Palace and took a deep breath. Dragon King, right? Very good. You are the first person I will remember. Just you wait. He spoke slowly with a gloomy face. This might be my honor. In this case, half of the northern region belongs to our Dragon Palace. Wang Xian smiled faintly and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Let's go. The Lord of Thunder suppressed the anger and thunder in his heart and shouted at the Eternal Thunder disciples behind him. It's the Lord of Thunder. The Eternal Army disciples and the two Thunder gods also heaved a sigh of relief. If they were to really fight, all of them would definitely be destroyed by the Dragon Palace. As for whether the Lord of Thunder could destroy the Dragon Palace, that would be a matter after their deaths. They did not want to die even after seeing the current ending. Rumble. The two Thunderhorn divine beasts at the peak of the godly state let out a low roar. The Thunder God Lord came to the throne with a gloomy expression. He stared deeply at Wuxia. Rumble. The two Thunderhorn divine beasts pulled the Thunder Battle Valley. The disciples of the Eternal Army did not say a word. They flew to the Thunder Battle Valley in silence. Today was undoubtedly a great humiliation to the entire Eternal Thunderclap. Rumble. Everyone flew to Thunder Battle Valley. The two Thunderhorn divine beasts roared again and flew towards the direction of Thunder Planet. Thunder God Lord sat on his throne coldly and slowly closed his eyes. If he wasn't afraid that Eternal Thunderclap's strongest legion and Thunder God would be killed, if he wasn't worried that Wuxia was invading Eternal Thunderclap, he, Thunder God Lord, would kill the Devil Dragon and destroy the Dragon Palace at all costs. Today he, the Thunder God Lord, would be humiliated. Head to the Steel Planet. He ordered in a low voice. The Thunderhorn divine beast roared and flew directly towards the Steel Planet. That place was suffering from Wuxia's attack, and it was possible that the entire Steel Planet had been destroyed. At the thought of this, the Thunder God Lord clenched his fists tightly, his heart filled with killing intent. He wouldn't be satisfied if he didn't kill the Dragon King. Hiss. At the same time, on the Free Trade Planet in the Northern Expedition, everyone's faces were filled with shock when they saw this scene. The Thunder God Lord and the others have left. This means that the Dragon Palace of the Northern region will occupy half of the planet in the future. For hundreds of thousands of years, the Dragon Palace is the only force that can compete with the Eternal Thunder in the Northern region. Does this mean that the Dragon Palace will be promoted to the sixth largest force in the boundless galaxy? Can they compete with other god-level forces? The current strength of the Dragon Palace might not be comparable to other god-level forces, but they are definitely not afraid of other god-level forces. This is because there is someone among them who can compete with the god-level forces. Shocked voices rang out continuously on the planet. Wuxia sat on the dragon throne in the void with a faint smile on his face. Let's go. Next, let's clean up the planets of the Northern Territory Alliance. Wuxia smiled as he watched the Thunder God Lord and the rest disappear from his sight. Roar, roar, roar. The 9 wind god dragons let out a roar of victory. Their roars reverberated throughout the entire planet. They pulled the dragon throne and slowly flew towards the direction of the Dragon Palace. Greetings, Dragon King. When the wind god dragon and the others flew over the cities, everyone on the planet quickly knelt down and bowed loudly. Today they witnessed the rise of the Dragon Palace and witnessed the rise of a force that could fight against eternal lightning. In the future, the Dragon Palace of the Northern region would occupy half of the city. It was no exaggeration to say that the Dragon Palace would be their king in the future. Whoever the Dragon Palace wanted to kill would have to die. The Dragon Palace would also possess the majesty that the Eternal Thunderclap had in the past. Wuxia's gaze swept down as the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Today the Dragon Palace would be famous throughout the entire northern region and even the entire boundless galaxy. Next, I will build the underwater Dragon Palace on the planets one by one. I will control all the oceans and gather the resources to raise the strength of the Dragon Palace once again. Wuxia mumbled as his eyes shone brightly. Who would have thought that a Dragon Palace would rise up so suddenly? That dark demon dragon seems to be the mastermind behind the demon lair in the northern region. I wonder how the Dragon King will subdue him. In the future, the Dragon Palace will be our king. The position of the Dragon King will be comparable to that of the Thunder God Lord in the northern region. Everyone on the planet watched Wuxia and the rest enter the Ocean Dragon Palace and spoke with reverence. Today they were witnesses. They could imagine that the news of the Thunder God Lord being forced to retreat by the Dragon Palace would spread to the other planets at a crazy speed. It wouldn't be long before the entire boundless galaxy would know about this. After all, after this battle, the Dragon Palace would be the sixth largest force in the boundless star area. Roar, Dragon King Dragon Palace, Dark Demon Dragon, I, Thunderclap will definitely kill you. Just as everyone on the Northern Expedition Free Trade Planet was shocked by the power of the Dragon Palace, on the Steel Planet, Thunderclap Godlord's eyes were bloodshot as he looked at the barren planet in front of him. Bolts of lightning covered the sky, covering an area of over 10,000 kilometers. Behind him, the two Thunder Gods and all the Eternal Army disciples lowered their heads in fear. It had been a long time since they had seen Thunder Godlord so angry, but it made sense when they thought about it. Eternal Thunder had suffered heavy losses recently, and there were only two Thunder Gods out of more than 20. Due to fear in the battle just now, the northern region would no longer be Thunderclap's king. In front of them, as one of the most important planets of Eternal Thunderclap, the Steel Planet had also been ravaged by demonic forces. If it were anyone else, they would be burning with rage. A force without a Godlord level actually dares to be so arrogant towards me. Dragon King, it will soon be your end. Thunderclap Godlord growled with a low hand, and around him, thin bolts of lightning were constantly flickering and jumping. My majesty is not something that anyone can provoke. To cause my eternal thunder to lose so much, there must be a price to pay. He slightly lowered his head and looked at the lightning in his hand with a cold gaze. Thoroughly angering a Godlord was extremely terrifying. Chapter 2161. 2161 was famous. The Thunder God Lord went to the Dragon Palace in person, but he was defeated. The Dragon Palace occupied half of the northern region and fought with Eternal Shocking Thunder. Eternal Shocking Thunder has suffered heavy losses recently. The Dragon Palace has experts who can fight against the Thunder God Lord. The Dragon Palace is rising. Shocking. A force in the northern region, the Dragon Palace, has the power to fight against Eternal Shocking Thunder. Its name is the Dragon Palace, and the leader of the Dragon Palace is the Dragon King. Is this for real? If it can fight against Eternal Shocking Thunder, doesn't that mean it's the sixth largest force in the boundless galaxy? The news of the northern expedition to the Free Trade Planet spread to the surrounding planets at a terrifying speed. Soon, everyone in the northern region knew about it. In less than 5 days, the news spread to other regions. Storyteller, what did you say? The Dragon Palace of the northern region rose up? The leader is the Dragon King? In the eastern region, Eternal Divine Leaf was next to Eternal Shocking Thunder. The news spread to all the planets in the eastern region at once. In a top restaurant on a planet, a storyteller was speaking in a bold and decisive manner. Yes, ladies, my news is 100% correct. Eternal Shocking Thunder has been unlucky recently. It is said that only 2 Eternal Thunderclap gods died, and then the Dragon Palace suddenly rose up. Although Eternal Thunderclap suffered heavy losses because of the Devil Den, the Thunder God Lord is a God Lord after all. Even after personally going on an expedition, he still suffered heavy losses. It can be imagined that the Dragon Palace is very powerful. To be able to contend against a God Lord, the Dragon Palace's strength can be seen to be average. It can be said that once its fame spread throughout the boundless region, the Dragon Palace also has the qualifications. The storyteller spoke with assurance, his face full of smiles. When Eternal Thunderclap encountered a disaster, Eternal Divine Leaf was the happiest. After all, they belonged to an enemy force. This news was good news for Eternal Divine Leaf. Oh, Old Wang is actually so powerful? The two girls' faces were filled with shock, and they looked at each other. Come, let's go ask Father to see if it's true. As the two girls spoke, they immediately flew out. In the restaurant, the two old men's eyes were filled with astonishment as they followed closely behind the two girls, secretly protecting their safety. Father, Father. Half an hour later, in the Eternal Divine Leaf Divine Kingdom, Huar and Kair shouted as they walked into the hall of the Divine Tree ahead. Girls, aren't you traveling? Why are you here all of a sudden? At that moment, Divine Leaf Divine Master heard the voice outside, and his face was full of smiles. He immediately stood up. Aunt? Little princess. In the great hall, everyone hurriedly bowed to Huar Kair. Father, we heard something and came to confirm it. Huar held God Lord Shinya's arm and said with a smile. Oh, the Dragon Palace in the north? God Lord Shinai stroked their heads with a solemn expression. He had just received this news not long ago. When he heard the news, his face was full of surprise. He couldn't believe that the godfather of his two daughters, a small force, was so terrifying. Is it true? The two girls asked with concern and joy. It's true. God Lord Shinai nodded heavily. It's amazing. I knew that the Dragon Palace would rise up quickly, but I didn't expect it to be so fast. Moreover, its reputation has spread all over the Boundless Star area. The two girls' faces were full of pride, and their eyes were shining. Seeing the proud and respectful looks of his two daughters, God Master Shinai shook his head in jealousy. However, he was shocked that a force that had only been in the Boundless Star field for 2 years now had the power to contend against God Masters. It's quite powerful, but it's still far from our eternal divine leaf. However, he forced himself to speak calmly. Humph, with old Wang and the other speed of improvement, the Dragon Palace will be stronger than eternal divine leaf in 2 years at most, no, even 1 year. The two girls shook their heads and said with certainty with their heads slightly raised. Why are you two girls helping others? God Lord Divine Leaf said with a dark face. Hee hee. The two girls smiled, their faces full of happiness. Li Muyang and Li Muyuan smiled bitterly. They were gathered here to talk about the new power, the Dragon Palace. They were not shocked at all. The Dragon King that they had met back then had reached a level that even the God Lord was shocked by. They were not the only ones who were shocked. The God Lord level forces in the southern region, western region, and central region were all talking about the Dragon Palace. They had really become famous in a single battle. They were even more shocked as they had a deeper understanding of the Dragon Palace. The speed of the Dragon King's growth was too fast. Little Xian, our Dragon Palace is developing at such a fast speed. It actually occupies 42 vital planets. If that's the case, our Dragon Phoenix Divine Dynasty can also develop at a fast speed. In the Dragon Palace on Earth, Wang Xian and a group of girls were having dinner in the Dragon King's bedroom. They were all delighted as they spoke. It's a little fast this time. Let's settle down properly in the next period of time. Wang Xian nodded his head. He was in a great mood. The Dragon Palace controlled the ocean of 42 planets and the resources of 42 planets. By gathering the resources of 42 planets, even if the Dragon Palace did not go through war, the speed of improvement was not slow. In 7 or 8 days, the gathered resources would be enough to ignite the divine fire of a member of the Dragon Palace. You can relax now. We have to work hard for the Dragon Phoenix Divine Dynasty. Ever since the girls decided to develop the Dragon Phoenix Divine Dynasty, they had been full of fighting spirit and were busy with work every day. Now, the Dragon Phoenix Divine Dynasty and the Dragon Gate Academy were developing together, and they were getting stronger and stronger. The Divine Realm experts of the Dragon Phoenix Divine Dynasty had already reached about 10, not counting the girls. It was quite a big force in the northern region in the past. Of course, the Dragon Palace was a big reason for this. After all, the Dragon Palace only controlled the ocean and only recruited aquatic creatures. If the others wanted to join the force, they could only join the Dragon Phoenix Divine Dynasty and the Dragon Gate Academy. This allowed them to develop at a very fast speed. Don't be busy for the next period of time. Let's have a good rest. Wang Xian glanced at the group of girls with shifty eyes and said with a smile on his face. Humph. The group of girls rolled their eyes at him but no one said anything. This also meant that they had tacitly agreed. Wang Xian hummed a tune and was in a very good mood. Chapter 2162. 2162 2162 Thunderclap Kill. Time slowly passed. Ever since the Dragon Palace rose to power and the Dragon Palace occupied half of the northern region, the entire northern region had fallen into a state of peace. Eternal Thunderclap, whose vitality had been greatly damaged, was recovering its strength. At this time, they did not have the energy to find trouble with the Dragon Palace. Furthermore, Eternal Thunderclap was no match for the Dragon Palace if the Thunderclap God Lord did not make a move. 2 years passed very quickly. For a god with a lifespan of 100,000 years, 2 years might not even be enough time for him to enter seclusion. However, during these 2 years, the Dragon Palace had completely stabilized the situation. The underwater Dragon Palace was spread across 42 planets. With the Dragon Palace's great development, the number of Dragon Palace members had increased from more than 30,000 to 50,000. With more than 10,000 members, the strength of the Dragon Palace had increased significantly. All the disciples of the Dragon Palace were at least at demigod level rank 9. In the past 2 years, the number of members who had lit the godly fire had reached 150. This was secondary. The number of disciples who had not lit the godly fire but were able to fight against a wisp of the godly fire had reached about 200. This was a huge improvement. In other words, the number of divine-level members of the Dragon Palace had reached more than 300. Compared to the number of God-level forces, there were still a few of them. However, Wuxia was not in a hurry. It had only been 4 years since the Dragon Palace had stepped into the boundless galaxy. These 4 years were comparable to the accumulation of hundreds of thousands of years by many forces. However, the fact that Wuxia had been staying in the Dragon Palace made one of them roar more and more furiously. It has been 2 years. The Dragon King rarely stepped out of the Dragon Palace. He only left the Dragon Palace a few times with the demonic dragon following him. In the eternal divine kingdom of the Lord of Thunder, lightning covered the entire divine kingdom. Compared to the past, the entire divine kingdom looked extremely violent. A thunder god knelt in front of the thunder god Lord and reported respectfully, "Continue to monitor. I don't believe that the Dragon King will always stay in the Dragon Palace, and will always be under the protection of the Devil Dragon." The thunder god Lord roared in a low voice. "It's Lord God Lord. Once the Dragon King leaves the Dragon Palace alone, your subordinate will report immediately." The thunder god nodded respectfully and bowed as he retreated. As he retreated out of the divine kingdom, he wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. For the past 2 years, every time he entered the eternal divine kingdom, he felt terrified. He could clearly sense the Lord God's anger towards the Dragon Palace and the Dragon King. "Damn Dragon King, you've completely angered the Lord God. With our Lord God watching you, your death is not far away." He growled in a low voice with a savage expression. There was only one possibility for the Lord God to have them watch the Dragon King at all times. That was for the Lord God to be prepared to take him by surprise and kill him, which was also a sneak attack. If the people from other factions knew that a Lord God was planning to sneak attack a peak deity realm expert, it would definitely cause a huge uproar. At that time, there would be different opinions about the Thunder God Lord. However, it was obvious that the furious Thunder God had already ignored the comments about him from the outside world. Dragon King. A month passed quietly. In the Dragon Palace, Wuxia was sitting cross-legged on the dragon throne. The 5 elements millstone in front of him was spinning as he was devouring the 5-star godly state materials. Prime Minister Gue came to the Dragon King's palace and shouted softly, What's the matter?" Wuxia raised his head and looked at Prime Minister Gue. "Dragon King, I received a message from Ao Jian." Prime Minister Gue took out his communication stone plate and said to Wuxia, "Oh, Ao Jian? What message did he send? Let me see." Wuxia was astonished. Ever since Ao He, Ao Jian, Ao Yao and the rest had left for the past few years, they had not sent any messages. Wuxia was also clueless about their situation. Now that he had received Ao Jian's message, he was slightly surprised. There is a great opportunity between the central region and the western region. It is suspected that the eternal tomb has appeared. When Wuxia saw Ao Jian's message, his face was filled with surprise. Wuxia naturally had a very good understanding of the eternal tomb. It was definitely an incomparably huge treasure. Back then, Qin Feiyang had obtained the inheritance of the divine tomb. If he didn't die later, there was a high chance of him becoming the eternal lord. A divine tomb was definitely a crazy existence. Ao Jian only sent a message. The outside world probably doesn't know about this divine tomb yet. Should I go and take a look? Wuxia looked hesitant. It wasn't easy to enter the eternal tomb. Back then, the Dragon Palace didn't enter the core of the 2 divine tombs. However, Wuxia would not be satisfied if he did not investigate the eternal tomb. "I have nothing to do now anyway. It's good to go and take a look." Wuxia mumbled to himself. He had already made up his mind. It had been more than 3 years since he last saw Ao Jian. He wanted to see how much Ao Jian had grown. However, unlike the strange demon, the dragon guards did not gather together. Instead, they were scattered or gathered in groups of 2 or 3. Not all of them were gathered together. "Prime Minister Gue, I'm preparing to go out for a while. The time is still to be determined. The dark blazing demonic dragon is in charge of the Dragon Palace. You can handle the rest of the matters." Wuxia said to Prime Minister Gue. "It's the Dragon King. Don't worry, Dragon King. Leave the Dragon Palace to me." Prime Minister Gue nodded and replied, "Okay." Wuxia nodded. Then his body moved and he flew out. Wang Xian wanted to inform the girls about his departure this time. The next morning at the Dragon Palace on Earth, Wang Xian waved goodbye to the girls. Through the teleportation formation of the Dragon Palace, Wang Xian arrived at the free planet of the Dragon Palace. The free planet of the Dragon Palace was previously a free trade planet in the Northern Expedition. Now its name had been changed. There were a large number of teleportation formations on this planet, which could save a lot of distance from the secondary school. Ever since I came to the boundless galaxy, I have never been to the central region. Wang Xian floated in the sky above the ocean with a smile on his face. This time he could go to the central region of the boundless galaxy to take a look and see the most prosperous place in the entire boundless galaxy. He muttered in his heart and flew directly to the location of the teleportation formation. The Dragon King is out. However, at this moment, what even Wang Xian didn't sense was that when he flew out from the ocean, an old man noticed his actions. The old man's expression changed slightly. He immediately took out his communication stone plate and sent out a message. Greetings, Dragon King. Wang Xian arrived at the location of the teleportation formation. The Dragon and Phoenix Divine Dynasty expert who was guarding the teleportation formation hurriedly flew over and reported respectfully. Okay. Wang Xian nodded his head faintly and left through the teleportation formation. What he still didn't know was that at the side of the teleportation formation, a soldier who was guarding the formation saw Wang Xian leaving. His eyes were sparkling. He took out a communication stone plate and began to transmit information. Eternal thunderclap had dominated the northern region for hundreds of thousands of years. Their background was beyond everyone's imagination. Chapter 2163. 2163-2163 had used all of his trump cards. Eternal Shocking Thunder, who dominated the entire northern region, had disciples all over the northern region. Even if the Dragon Palace controlled half of the northern region, Eternal Shocking Thunder could easily find out some things. It was also easy to send thousands or even tens of thousands of hidden sentries to monitor the Dragon Palace. After all, the Dragon Palace had only been in the northern region for a short period of time. Unlike the Eternal Thunderclap, which had disciples all over the northern region. Wang Xian did not sense that someone was watching his every move. The other party did not follow him either. It was impossible for Wang Xian to notice him even if he merely stayed here to take a look. Even the Eternal God Lord would find it hard to notice anything under such circumstances. Wang. At this moment, a Thunder God in the Thunder God Mansion looked at the messages sent by his subordinates with an excited look on his face. It's been more than 2 years. That Dragon King has finally come out. His time of death has come. A ferocious and fiery look appeared on his face. His body moved and he quickly flew toward the Eternal Divine Kingdom. Boom, boom, boom. 2 minutes later, a bolt of lightning struck in front of the Eternal Kingdom. The purple lightning streaked across the sky and disappeared into the vast void. The God of Thunder looked at the disappearing lightning with respect and a smile appeared on his face. This time the Dragon King would definitely die. This was the consequence of angering a god. From the northern region to the central region, only the heavenly sun planet with eternal lightning has a teleportation formation. If I fly there, it will take at least half a month. Wang Xian slowly appeared in front of the teleportation formation on the Sky Sun planet. Currently, Eternal Thunderclap and the Dragon Palace had yet to reach the stage where they could cut off the teleportation of the planet. Therefore, Wang Xian could easily enter Eternal Thunderclap. However, when he arrived here, Wang Xian covered himself completely with a bunch of loose robes. He wore a hat on his head to prevent himself from being recognized. If the God of Thunder knows that I have stepped into their territory, he might send someone to ambush me. Wang Xian smiled faintly and walked to the side. Not far away from the side, there was a teleportation formation that directly teleported to the planet in the central region. As a planet that teleported across regions, there were many people coming and going around. Many merchant teams were stationed here. This could be considered a prosperous planet. Wang Xian covered his body and walked straight to the planet's teleportation formation in front of him. He took out the spirit stones and placed them in the formation. But the formation shimmered. Just when the formation was about to teleport away from Wang Xian, there was no movement on it. Wang Xian was slightly stunned. All of a sudden he felt a huge wave of terror engulfing his heart. Wang Xian's expression changed and he quickly dodged to the side. However, when he dodged to the side, he didn't notice that someone was attacking him. His expression changed slightly and he quickly swept his surroundings. Boom. When he saw a middle-aged man covered in lightning in the sky, his expression changed drastically. Oh no, why is he here? Wang Xian was astonished. Without any hesitation, his body shook and he wanted to teleport away. However, at this moment he could feel that the space around him seemed to be frozen. It was impossible for him to teleport. He is here specifically to wait for me. A thought immediately appeared in Wang Xian's mind and his heart sank. What happened? When some people around saw Wang Xian's panicked look, they were stunned. Dragon King, I really don't know who gave you the courage to step into the eternal thunderbolt domain alone. A voice filled with contempt came from the middle-aged man in the sky. Wang Xian's body stiffened and his expression was extremely ugly. He took a deep breath and stared at the middle-aged man. The Lord of Thunderbolt is really giving me face, Dragon King. He actually ordered people to monitor me at all times and ambush me here. He said slowly while staring at the Lord of Shocking Thunder with a dark expression. As he said that, he took off his hood and his gaze was cold. What? Lord of Shocking Thunder? That person is the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace? When everyone around heard Wang Xian's words, they were shocked. They looked at the Lord of Shocking Thunder who was floating in the sky with a look of awe. Greetings, Thunder God Lord. Everyone hurriedly knelt on the ground and greeted the Thunder God Lord. At the same time, they looked at the Dragon King in front of them in shock. Is the Thunder God Lord here to kill this Dragon King? The Dragon King of the Dragon Palace is going to be finished. Everyone had already made a decision in their hearts. Haha, ambushing you? You Dragon King think too highly of yourself. If I wanted to kill you, it would be as easy as squishing an ant to death. The God of Thunder stared at Wang Xian and laughed out loud in a good mood. Wang Xian stared at him and clenched his fists lightly. His gaze swept across the surroundings. Stop looking. You are just an ant. It is your honor for me to kill you with my own hands. The God of Thunder stared at Wang Xian with a face full of contempt. He extended his index finger from high above and a bolt of lightning appeared on his finger. Crackle, crackle. With a tap of his index finger, the bolt of lightning headed straight for Wang Xian. Although it was a small action and even carried a hint of disdain in its attack style, the power of the lightning within was extremely terrifying. Boom! The bolt of lightning arrived in an instant. Wang Xian didn't even have the strength to resist and was directly struck by it. His expression changed drastically and his body flew backward. He didn't have the ability to resist at all. Wang Xian sensed the terror of the Lord of Thunder and his expression changed drastically. The sound of cracking could be heard from within his body. The dragon punishing bone shattered. Crash. Wang Xian sensed that his body didn't receive much of an attack. He moved his body and the incipient holy wings appeared behind him. The incipient holy wings flapped violently and he flew toward the void with all his might. He is really a stubborn ant. The God of Thunder raised his eyebrows slightly when he saw that his attack did not kill Wang Xian. He waved his arm and dense thunderbolts struck toward Wang Xian once again. Damn it, the speed of the thunderbolts is too fast. Wang Xian sensed the thunderbolts behind him and his expression changed slightly. Crush. A rich seven-colored energy appeared directly on the wings. He gritted his teeth and the wings emitted an intense light. He unleashed all his strength and narrowly avoided the bolts of lightning. HMPH Dragon King, do you know why people call me the Thunder God Lord? I'll let you experience it today. The Thunder God Lord snorted coldly when he saw that Wang Xian had dodged his attack again. Crackle. The sound of thunder and lightning came from behind. In the next moment, Wang Xian felt a purple bolt of lightning landing on his body. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of the dragon punishing bone breaking was heard again. After ruling over 42 planets, Wang Xian had obtained another dragon punishing bone. There are quite a lot of life-saving items. If you, an ant, can escape today, where will the face of the Thunder God Lord be? Eternal Thunderclap's face turned cold when he saw his attack was blocked by a ball of energy. Chapter 2164 2164 2164 The Soul in the Uninitiated Holy Wings. A thunderous sound. All living things in the world were terrified. This was the evaluation of the Thunder God Lord from the boundless galaxy. When the thunderous sound rang out, the terrifying attack had already landed on his body. Crackle crackle. The Thunder God Lord stood in the void and looked at Wang Xian, who was running for his life. He waved his arm playfully. 2 thunderbolts instantly landed on the wings on Wang Xian's back. Wang Xian, who was running for his life, turned pale. When the bolts of lightning landed on his body, 2 miserable shrieks were heard. The miserable shrieks did not originate from him but from the 2 dragon souls on his wings. Under the power of the lightning, the 2 dragon souls dissipated and completely sank into the uninitiated holy wings. When he heard the miserable shrieks of the dragon souls on the uninitiated holy wings, his heart sank and a hint of despair appeared on his face. Faced with such a terrifying Thunder God Lord, Wang Xian didn't have the ability to resist at all. He die. Palipala. At this moment, a contemptuous voice came from behind. When the lightning struck, his face sank. There was no time for him to escape. An incomparably huge lightning bolt landed directly on Wang Xian's body. Ah! A feeling of excruciating pain spread from his back. Wang Xian felt that a large part of his back was split open. He could feel his blood dripping down crazily. He could feel the life force in his body disappearing rapidly. I'm done for. His heart sank and a bitter expression appeared on his face. He would never have thought that the Thunder God was waiting for him here to ambush him. He's not dead yet? Ants really have a tough life. Let him perish. At this moment, violent purple thunderbolts struck toward Wang Xian. Hiss, the Dragon King is going to die. The Dragon King of the Dragon Palace is going to die. Haha, this is the outcome of offending our eternal thunderbolts. Below them, everyone from Eternal Thunderbolts looked excited when they saw this scene. There were also some merchants from the central region who felt a chill in their hearts when they saw this scene. They didn't expect to see this scene here. They saw the fall of the leader of the Dragon Palace who had risen to power 2 years ago. Ah! Painful sounds filled his entire body. Wang Xian could feel that his body had been completely dismembered by the lightning. Even every single cell in his body seemed to have been obliterated. He couldn't help but let out a miserable scream. He would definitely die from this attack. Wang Xian could feel his consciousness dissipating. He could feel that he was about to die. Haha, I'm finally awake. This body is not bad. It's a pity that my life force has almost completely dissipated. This won't do. I have to get rid of the Genesis wings now. I'm not completely dead yet. It's barely enough. Crush. Just as Wang Xian was in a daze and felt that he was about to disappear, a voice suddenly rang in his ears. Following that, he felt the Genesis wings on his back unfurling. His body, which was almost destroyed, had recovered a little. You're not dead yet. At this moment, the astonished voice of the Thunder God Lord rang out. Crack, crack, crack. Following that, Wang Xian heard the crackling of thunder and lightning. Damn it, how dare these puny God Lords attack me, an ant. The furious voice of the old man continued to ring in Wang Xian's ears. Soon after, he felt the uninitiated holy wings wrapping around his entire body. Crush. In front of him, he vaguely sensed a black hole appearing in front of him. He went straight into the black hole. How is this possible? Die for this god. The Thunder God Lord's furious voice continued to sound out, and bolts of lightning filled the void. But the black hole slowly disappeared. Crackle crackle. In the sky above the heavenly sun planet, dense and endless lightning covered the sky, and the terrifying lightning caused the sky and earth to change color. Below, everyone stared at this scene in horror. Ka ka ka. The Thunder God Lord, who was located in the center of the lightning, was extremely furious. He stared at the black hole that had completely disappeared with a ferocious expression. He had actually failed. He had actually allowed the Dragon King to escape in his hands. How could he be willing to let the Dragon King, who was about to be killed by him, escape by force? Where was his face? He looked over with a gloomy face and his breathing was a little hurried. Palipala. In the end, he left with a gloomy face. If he failed this time, the Dragon King would never be alone again. It would be even harder for him to kill him. Hoo, how terrifying. That Dragon King actually ran away. It's unbelievable. He escaped from the hands of the Thunder God Lord. That Dragon King is so powerful. Exclamations came from below. Everyone slowly stood up and sighed. Soon, the news spread to the surroundings at a terrifying speed. When the news of the Dragon King being ambushed and killed by the Lord of Thunder reached the Dragon Palace, all the members of the Dragon Palace were furious. Although the Dragon King didn't die, it was still a blatant provocation to their Dragon Palace. Prime Minister Gue immediately announced that all teleportation to Eternal Shocking Thunder would be closed. Then, the Dark Thunder Devil Dragon led a group of experts from the Dragon Palace to attack Eternal Shocking Thunder Planet. At the same time, the hidden demons were ready to move, attacking Eternal Shocking Thunder one after the other. In one day they directly broke through the 4 planets of Eternal Shocking Thunder. After taking over the 4 planets, the Dragon Palace finally gave up. Bus, bus, bus. At this moment, in the Dragon Palace on Earth, the ancestral tree in the Dragon King Palace suddenly trembled slightly. The soul-returning tree was emitting a mysterious luster. The ancestral tree only moved for 2 seconds before it stopped. What's going on? I can't possess the body of a little god. Crack, crack, crack. I'm so angry. What the hell is this place? The primal purple chi is so thin. Ah, it's over, it's over. If we don't have a chance this time, our chances in the future will be even slimmer. In the sky above the western region, a voice suddenly came from a body that was falling from the sky. The pale voice was filled with exasperation. Crash. The body had a pair of white bone wings. The bone wings trembled twice before it slowly entered the back and completely disappeared. Bam. The body landed in the forest with a loud sound. The one who fell from the sky was naturally Wang Xian, who had escaped by accident. The heavy injuries on his body caused him to lose consciousness immediately. Brother, there's someone here. No, he has 2 horns. He might be a descendant of a divine beast too. After an unknown period of time, a sweet-sounding voice suddenly sounded. A beautiful young lady was sizing up Wang Xian under the tree. The young lady had a pair of pointy ears and a long tail. She had a charming expression on her face. This is Lin Tianxin from the fox pattern celestial race. How can there be a human here? A young man's voice was heard. He fainted here and is still breathing. Brother, come and take a look. Chapter 2165. 2165 2165 Void God Emperor. Has he woken up yet? Miss, not yet. It has been a month and he still hasn't woken up yet. He seems to be seriously injured. I've checked some information on the divine beast descendant with 2 horns on his head, but I still can't find anything. In the room that had an ancient fragrance that made it seem like there were some unusual species, the sounds of conversation entered Wang Xian's ears. He opened his eyes slightly and moved his body. Instantly, waves of intense pain came over. Wang Xian frowned and tried to sense his body. It was too horrible to look at. What happened? Based on my current situation, I should be dead for sure? That's not right. At that time, there seemed to be a voice ringing in my ears. Wang Xian's face revealed a contemplative look as his eyes sparkled. He clearly remembered that just as he was about to be killed, a voice suddenly rang out. And the source of the voice was. Wang Xian endured the pain in his body and sat up. Then he touched his back. Sensing that the voice outside had disappeared, he pondered for a moment. Come out. Wang Xian growled in a low voice. His voice was transmitted to the uninitiated holy wings behind him. Bus. Brat, hurry up and pay your respects to me. All of a sudden the entire wooden room underwent a change. The surroundings turned into a vast white space. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly and sized up his surroundings. His gaze landed on the old man in front of him. The old man looked like a celestial being. He had a long white beard and held a scepter in his hand. He seemed to be filled with an otherworldly aura. However, his body was not real. Kid, I saved you from that little god. Why aren't you thanking me? When the old man saw that Wang Xian had no reaction, he snorted and raised his head slightly. He looked unhappy. Are you the soul of the incorporeal holy wings? You don't deserve the soul of a divine weapon, yet you still want to possess it? Wang Xian stared at the old man coldly and said, Who is the soul of a divine weapon? I am the Celestial Emperor. Do you know that I am the Celestial Emperor? The Celestial Emperor who has swept across all corners of the world. You better watch what you say. When the old man heard Wang Xian's words, he roared furiously. Celestial Emperor? Wang Xian was slightly moved, but his face was still filled with coldness. So, you admit that you have possessed the soul? An old man who only has his soul left wants to possess the soul? I think you want your soul to be destroyed. Wang Xian stared at him coldly and growled in a low voice. How dare you? I am the god of heaven's formation, you little god. Let's see what's going on with you first. The old man blew his beard and glared at him while Wang Xian said indifferently. You. When the old man heard his words, he instantly wilted. If he had a physical body, his face would definitely be flushed red. Soul catcher. Wang Xian didn't want to continue talking to him. This old man was hiding in the inceptive sage wings. He didn't wake up at the beginning, but there were 2 dragon souls suppressing him. After the dragon souls were destroyed, he came out to possess him. His intentions were definitely not good. Wang Xian naturally couldn't let him stay. Damn it, stop. The old man sensed the special energy attacking his soul. His expression changed as he moved and disappeared. Ha! Wang Xian saw that the soul-capturing effect had failed and the white mirror image around him had disappeared. He could sense the uninitiated holy wings behind him. Old man, aren't you the celestial emperor? Why aren't you being arrogant anymore? He said faintly. You, little brother, you are ruthless. The old man's voice came from the uninitiated holy wings. Wang Xian smiled coldly and ignored him. The old man was defeated and didn't speak to Wang Xian anymore. Phew. He temporarily put aside the old man's matter behind him. He sensed the strength of his body and his face was filled with bitterness. With his current strength, a powerhouse at the half-body level could kill him. He moved his palm and took out some divine herbs and pills from the mother nest and consumed them directly. Young man, you're awake. At this moment, a middle-aged woman walked in. When the woman saw Wang Xian sitting up, she immediately walked over. Thank you for saving my life. Wang Xian looked at the woman and thanked her. You don't have to thank me, It was our young mistress who brought you here. If you want to thank me, thank our young mistress. I haven't eaten much in a month. Young man, I'll bring you some soup. The woman spoke enthusiastically and turned around to walk out. I'm clearly the one who saved your life. You're a kid who repaid kindness with enmity. You must die. At this moment, a voice suddenly entered his mind. Wang Xian was slightly stunned. Old man, you're already dead. He said directly with a dark face. As soon as he finished his sentence, the old man's voice immediately disappeared. Wang Xian sat cross-legged on the bed and digested the medicinal pills he had just consumed. At the very least, he wanted to recover some of his injuries first. As for the old man, he had doubts about him being an immortal emperor in the past. Above the eternal God Lord was the immortal God King, and above the immortal God King was the void God Emperor. The void God Emperor represented eternal life. Only when he had the 7 transformations of the divine dragon transformation would he be able to reach the void God Emperor level. He did not believe the words of the old fellow inside the incipient sacred wings. God Emperor? Bullshit. Wang Xian muttered softly as he felt the digestion of the divine pill divine grass. However, his injuries had not even recovered by a 10th. At the moment, he only had the strength of a peak-stage demigod. Bastard. If I didn't die and my soul didn't enter the damn bone wings, I would have crushed you to death with one hand. I will place you in the purgatory formation so that you can enjoy death and fear. In the divine wings, the old man roared furiously when he heard Wang Xian's words. However, Wang Xian did not hear his angry roar. Young man, the soup is here. Drink some soup to nourish your body. At this moment, the woman who had just left walked in with a bowl of soup. Auntie, may I know where is this place? Wang Xian looked at the woman and asked with a smile on his face. Where is this place? This is Wuxia Mountain of the Huan celestial race. The woman said with a smile. Huan celestial race? Wuxia Mountain? May I know what planet and which region is this? Wang Xian was puzzled as he continued to ask. Young man, are you out of your mind? This is the hidden tiger planet in the territory of the godly tiger dynasty in the western region. Do you still remember your name? Do you still remember where your home is? Do you want us to send you home so that your family won't be worried? The woman asked Wang Xian consecutively. Wang Xian took the soup bowl and opened his mouth slightly. He didn't know how to respond and could only shake his head. Is there really something wrong with your head? The woman was slightly stunned and looked at him sympathetically. When Wang Xian saw the woman's expression, the corner of his mouth twitched. He couldn't possibly say that he was from the northern region. The woman wouldn't believe it even if he told her. The Western region. Ao Jian should be in the Western region or the Central region. It shouldn't be too far from the Divine Tomb. Chapter 2166. 2166. Hu Yener. With my current strength I can't even use the kingdom of God. I can't even summon the disciples of the Dragon Palace. Looks like I'll have to stay on the hidden tiger planet for a period of time. Wang Xian finished the soup in his hand and pondered in his heart. This injury was the heaviest he had ever suffered. He was able to survive in the end because of the old man. However, this did not make Wang Xian thank the old man. After all, the old man wanted to possess him. The sky outside gradually darkened. The woman left after giving some instructions. Wang Xian stood up from the bed and walked out of the room. Due to his injury, he looked weak and extremely pale. After walking out of the room, Wang Xian scanned his surroundings and realized that he was in the courtyard at the foot of the mountain. The courtyard was not very big. There were flowers of various colors planted in it. In the middle of the courtyard was a tree that was dozens of meters tall. A small courtyard by itself is not bad. I will have to thank the people who brought me here in the future. Wang Xian thought to himself as he walked to the chair under the tree. He took out his communication stone plate and prepared to contact Ao Jian to ask about the situation. However, Ao Jian didn't reply to his message even after sending it for a long time. It seems like Ao Jian must have encountered something or has entered the Divine Tomb. Wang Xian thought to himself. He closed his eyes and began to restore his strength. But in an instant, dense spiritual energy entered his body, causing it to be slowly enveloped by a seven-colored radiance. What's going on? The seven-colored radiance? No, this is 7 attributes. It's 7 attributes. How is this possible? Impossible, absolutely impossible. It's impossible for a person to have 7 attributes at the same time. I must have sensed wrongly. If Yusuke, how could I have sensed wrongly? This kid has 7 attributes. When Wang Xian began to absorb the spiritual energy and the 7-colored radiance enveloped him, the old man in the incipient saint wings suddenly widened his eyes. His body trembled and his face was filled with disbelief. This was the first time he had seen something like this, even though he had lived for tens of millions of years. 7 attributes. How could a person have 7 attributes? This kid is too weird. He is too heaven-defying. The old man kept stroking his long beard with his bare hands. He kept walking and his expression changed. The more he sensed, the more certain he was that the kid had 7 attributes. 7 attributes. This had touched the blind spot of his knowledge as an almighty God. When he just woke up, he felt as though he was living in a dream. But at this moment, Wang Xian, who was recovering his strength, suddenly felt the scene in front of him changing. In front of him, an old man with white hair and a long beard appeared in front of him. A pair of fiery eyes were staring at him. Old man, what are you doing this time? Wang Xian frowned as he looked at the old man and asked immediately. Kid, you are lucky. I have decided to take you in as my disciple, my last disciple. The old man didn't care about Wang Xian's rudeness and spoke to him seriously. A dead man still wants to be my master? Even if you are really the celestial emperor, you don't have the qualifications. Wang Xian said indifferently. Putting aside the fact that the old man had already fallen, even if he didn't fall, a celestial emperor of the void who had the inheritance of the divine dragon didn't have the qualifications to be his master. I am the celestial emperor of the sky array and I can sweep through all corners of the world. You brat. When the old man heard his words, he was instantly enraged. He extended his hand and pointed at Wang Xian. This old man doesn't have any good intentions. Get lost immediately. Don't disturb me from restoring my strength. Otherwise. Wang Xian threatened him faintly. Huff huff. The old man's breathing was a little hurried. He knew that Wang Xian was not joking. With a move, he disappeared immediately. I will look for an opportunity to subdue him or absorb his memories. Wang Xian thought to himself as he looked at the old man who had disappeared. The surrounding scenery had recovered. He slowly closed his eyes and continued to recover. Damn it. That kid is very wary of me. It seems that he has a lot of opinions about me after the previous possession. The old man returned to the space of the uninitiated holy wings and said with a black face. 7 attributes. There doesn't seem to be such a heaven-defying existence in history. No wonder I didn't succeed in possessing him. However, if I can take him in as my disciple, I might be able to take revenge in the future. I might even have a chance to reconstruct my golden body. No, this kid has a lot of opinions about me. An anxious look appeared on the old man's face. After a few minutes, he raised his head slightly. Looks like I have to refresh my good impression of him bit by bit. With a bitter expression, he nodded towards the void. But the next moment, a faint purple glow appeared around Wang Xian. The purple glow flashed past. Ha! Suddenly, Wang Xian sensed that the spiritual energy around him had increased by about 20 times. I am the god of heaven's formation. No one can compare to the heaven and earth great formation. This is a small formation that can increase the surrounding spiritual energy by 20 times. If I were at my peak, I could wave my arm and form the heaven and earth great formation to gather spiritual energy within a radius of tens of millions of kilometers. If you become my disciple, I will teach you how to set up the heaven and earth formation and control the power of laws. The old man's voice entered Wang Xian's mind. He raised his eyebrows slightly and a hint of surprise flashed across his eyes. He didn't reply and just sat there quietly with his legs crossed. Pitch, a kid who holds grudges. The old man spoke angrily from within the inceptive sage wings. Master, that young man has already woken up. It seems like there's something wrong with his brain. He doesn't even know about our planet. After an unknown period of time, Wang Xian suddenly heard a voice coming from outside the door. Something wrong with his brain? Does that mean he doesn't know where he came from? If he doesn't know, he will be thrown into the hall of servants. A middle-aged man's voice rang out. Father, no matter what, I was the one who saved him outside. How can he be sent to the hall of servants? A disgruntled voice rang out. It was pleasant to the ear. We Celestials don't keep idle people. The middle-aged man's dignified voice rang out. That won't do. Then let him make his own choice. The female voice said in dissatisfaction. Wang Xian listened to the conversation outside and slowly opened his eyes. Voila! The door to the courtyard opened. The middle-aged man, the woman, and a young girl walked in. The middle-aged man was slightly skinny. He had a tail behind him and looked like a scholar. He looked at Wang Xian, who was sitting cross-legged and cultivating. He sized up Wang Xian from head to toe and his eyes were filled with astonishment. The strength of a demigod. He was secretly shocked and opened his mouth to speak. I am Wang Xian. Thank you for saving my life, miss. Wang Xian swept his gaze across the middle-aged man and landed on the delicate-looking young lady with 3 pink marks on her face. She had fox ears and a fox tail. A hint of astonishment flashed across his eyes as he cupped his hands. You still remember the name? The middle-aged man raised his eyebrows. Chapter 2167. 2167 Under Hu Yen Air. It seems like you have recovered completely. The young lady with a foxtail and ears sized up Wang Xian and said with a smile. Yes, I have recovered a little. Wang Xian nodded his head lightly at the young lady. Judging from your aura, you shouldn't be from an ordinary family. Were you being chased by your enemies when you were seriously injured? The skinny middle-aged man stared at Wang Xian and asked faintly. It was an ambush by my enemies. Wang Xian nodded at the middle-aged man. You don't look like you have lost your memory at all. The skinny middle-aged man revealed a cold look in his eyes. He stared at Wang Xian's pupils and wagged his tail gently. But a cluster of red mist suddenly enveloped Wang Xian. Tell me, where are you from? Being suddenly covered by the red mist, Wang Xian was slightly stunned. Soon after, he felt that his consciousness was a little blurry. His mind jolted and he frowned slightly as he looked at the surrounding mist. I don't know. Wang Xian hesitated for a moment before answering. He couldn't possibly tell them that he was from the northern region and that he was being chased by a god, right? It would be fine if they didn't believe him if he told them that. However, if they did, they would definitely be dumbfounded and their faces would be filled with astonishment. Then, how do you know your own name? The skinny middle-aged man's voice continued to ring out. I don't know. Wang Xian replied indifferently. Father. Outside the red mist, the young girl's expression changed slightly when she saw her father displaying the innate ability of the fox-patterned celestial race. She hurriedly pulled her father's arm. This kid has the strength of a demigod. In order to prevent any accidents and prevent the other party from intentionally getting close to us, we must investigate clearly. But now, it seems like he has really lost his memory. The thin and weak middle-aged man said to the young girl. He had already ignited the divine fire and performed the innate divine ability of the fox-patterned celestial race to charm a demigod. He was still very confident. He didn't ask any more questions. With a wave of his arm, the red mist dissipated. Miss, you saved me. I, Wang Xian, will definitely repay you in the future. Wang Xian frowned slightly and said to the young lady. No need, no need. Even if I didn't save you, you might still be fine. The young lady waved her hand. Her face was full of smiles. Oh right, you have 2 horns on your head. Are you also a descendant of a divine beast? She looked at Wang Xian's horns curiously and asked. Wang Xian shook his head lightly and didn't say anything else. It seems like you have really lost your memory. However, you have already reached the demigod level at such a young age. You are quite impressive. The young lady looked at him with slight admiration. Your talent is quite strong. Reaching the demigod level in your 30s is not bad. The thin middle-aged man nodded his head faintly. Wang Xian's age had already been found out when the doctor was treating him. They already knew about it. He smiled faintly when he heard that. If they were to know that he was the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace and had the strength at the peak of the godly state in the past, he wondered how they would react. Master, this is bad. The young sect master of the ancient Orchid Divine Sect and the princess of the Divine Tiger Dynasty have come to our fox-patterned divine clan. They are all in the main hall now. The clan has asked me to call you and Miss over. At this moment an anxious voice came from outside. What? The ancient Orchid Divine Sect has really come. The thin middle-aged man was slightly stunned as anger appeared on his face. Let's go, let's go. He looked at the young lady at the side. His gaze focused and landed on Wang Xian. Little brother, follow me too. Wang Xian was slightly stunned and nodded in astonishment. You're here? When the young girl heard the report from the servant, she revealed an excited expression on her face. Wang Xian looked at the anger of the skinny middle-aged man and the excitement in the young girl's eyes. He was extremely astonished. Young lady, what happened? Following behind the skinny middle-aged man, Wang Xian asked the young girl beside him in puzzlement. He couldn't help but look at the tale behind her. I'm here to break off the engagement. When I was just born, my father made an engagement for me when I was young. The other party seems to have a princess on the list and is here to break off the engagement with me. The young lady turned around and said with a smile. Break off the engagement with you? Shouldn't you be very angry? Then you said, don't bully a young lady who is poor. The river flows east for 30 years and the river flows west for 30 years. Wang Xian was a little stunned when he saw how happy she was. Why didn't she play by the rules? I've only met that guy once or twice. I don't like him either. It was all my father's engagement when I was young. I'm even happy that he came to break off the engagement. The young girl said softly. It's just that my father and grandfather are a little angry. They said that it's not good for a girl's reputation, and it will also have a great impact on our family. Following that, the young girl spoke in a low voice. Wang Xian nodded his head speechlessly. Although the young girl's reaction was abnormal, her family's reaction was still quite normal. After all, if others came to break off the engagement, it would be a great insult to their family. It would also be bad for the young girl's reputation in the future. By the way, my name is Hu Yen. You can just call me by this name from now on. Hu Yen continued to speak to Wang Xian. He nodded his head and gained a little understanding of Hu Yen and the fox-patterned celestial race. A family that was born from the transformation of a divine beast and a human girl was not uncommon in the boundless galaxy. However, this was the first time Wang Xian had seen a young fox girl. She had a good figure and was filled with charm. Even the legendary Daji's appearance was just SOSO. Little brother. Following Hu Yen's father, they came to the front of a hall on the mountain peak. The middle-aged man suddenly turned his head to look at Wang Xian. Please speak. Wang Xian nodded and replied. My daughter saved your life. When it's time for you to repay her later, I hope you can act according to the situation in the hall. Suddenly, the middle-aged man spoke to Wang Xian. Wang Xian was a little stunned by his words. The young girl at the side also looked at her father in puzzlement. However, before they could speak, the skinny middle-aged man walked into the main hall with a cold expression on his face. Haha, brother Hu Fei is here. My niece is here too. Just as he walked into the main hall, a loud laughter was heard. Wang Xian looked over and saw more than 20 people standing on the left. They were dressed in green, and the person who spoke was a middle-aged man who was holding a wooden scepter. Beside the middle-aged man was a young man wearing a green straw hat and green clothes. The young man looked handsome and did not seem to be bothered. At this moment, a lady dressed in purple with a tiger's head embroidered on her chest was holding onto the young man's arm. When she saw Hu Yen-er and the rest arriving, she raised her head slightly and stared at Hu Yen-er provocatively. There were about 30 to 40 people standing on the right. Their faces were filled with anger. In the middle, an old man and a middle-aged man with a tiger's head embroidered on their bodies were sitting there. Father. When Hu Fei saw this scene, his expression turned slightly ugly. He ignored the middle-aged man and directly bowed to the old man who was sitting there. Grandfather. Hu Yen-er also immediately called out. Chapter 2168. 2168. Yes. The old man in the center nodded with a gloomy face when he saw Hu Yen-er and the others arrive. Since you're here, just say what you want to say. The middle-aged man sitting next to the old man in the center said faintly. Brother Hu Fei, I'm really sorry about what happened this time. My son and Princess Tianran fell in love with each other at first sight. As parents, we can't force them to stop the marriage between our son and your beloved. As for the marriage between our son and your beloved in the past, I think we should just drop it. This is the marriage contract from back then. The middle-aged man on the left took out the marriage contract with a smile on his face and said with a smile. Marriage cannot be forced. Since young Tian is so outstanding, there will naturally be better choices. As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, the girl holding the young man's arm said with a smile on her face. When Hu Fei heard their words, his expression changed slightly. My Hu Fei's daughter is very outstanding. He said coldly with a sullen face. Xiaotian, do you think she is outstanding or I am outstanding? Tell me. When the girl heard Hu Fei's words, she raised her head slightly and shook Gu Xiaotian's arm as she said softly. Naturally you are more outstanding. How can the other girls compare to you? Gu Xiaotian hurriedly said. He swept a glance at Hu Yen-er as his eyes flashed with a burning desire. However, he immediately lowered his head and coaxed the woman. In terms of beauty, no one in the world could compare to Hu Yen-er from the Huan celestial race. However, in terms of talent and background, Tianran was even more powerful. He knew how to choose. The ancient Orchid Divine Sect would also make him choose. When Hu Yen-er heard their words, her small face turned cold as she snorted. Hee, brother Hu Fei, accept it? The middle-aged man looked at Hu Fei and said indifferently. Previously, their ancient Orchid Divine Sect had privately discussed the engagement with the Foxmark Divine Clan. However, how could the Foxmark Divine Clan agree? This was related to their family clan's humiliation and Hu Yen-er's reputation. They had directly rejected it. But this time they had brought Princess Tianran and Princess Tianran had brought experts over. Even if the Foxmark Divine Clan didn't agree, they had to agree. Back then, it was you who said you wanted to form an alliance through marriage. Now it's you who want to break the contract. The ancient Orchid Divine Sect has gone a little too far. The old man sitting at the front in the middle said with a cold expression. Elder Hu, the ancient Orchid Divine Sect might have made a mistake this time, but we can't joke about our child's marriage. When the time comes, our Royal Highness will send some gifts as compensation. The middle-aged man beside him said indifferently. Compensation? How can my sister's reputation be compensated? Without waiting for the elder to speak, a young man in the main hall spoke with a face full of anger. Impudent! How can Commander Lien speak when you have the right to speak? On the other side, a middle-aged man shouted at the young man. Haha. Commander Lien glanced at the young man and said with a faint smile. Haha, everyone don't quarrel. Don't quarrel. It's just a small matter. Isn't it just a matter of marriage? It's just an engagement. At this moment, Hu Fei, who was standing in the center, suddenly took a deep breath. He forced a smile and said, Father. Oh. The members of the Foxmark Divine Clan were startled. They looked at Hu Fei in astonishment. Even the elder and Hu Yen-er on the stage looked on in astonishment. Such a matter was no small matter to a family clan like theirs. Humph. Princess Tian ran harumphed when she heard Hu Fei's words. A satisfied expression appeared on her face. Hee, I won't hide it from everyone from the ancient Orchid Divine sect. Even if all of you don't come today, we might have to make a trip to your place. My daughter, Hu Fei, believes that no one in the entire Hidden Tiger planet can compare to her beauty. She is the apple of my eye. Naturally, she will marry an outstanding young man who satisfies me. You can tear up this marriage contract directly. This is a copy of ours. Xiaoxian, come tear it up. This time it will save us a lot of trouble. Hu Fei was all smiles as he spoke. He took out a marriage contract from his interspatial ring and walked to Wang Xian, handing it to him. Little brother, my daughter saved your life. You have seen the current situation. My daughter and the reputation of the Huan celestial race cannot be ruined. You can take her place for now. After a period of time, I will let my daughter declare that she is not suitable for you. This way my daughter's reputation will not be tarnished. This is your gratitude for saving my daughter's life. Hu Fei was standing opposite Wang Xian. As she handed over the marriage contract, she transmitted her voice to him. This? Wang Xian was a little dazed. He looked at the thin middle-aged man in front of him with a stunned expression. Father. Hu Yan'er was obviously stunned as well. She immediately called out to her father in a low voice. Hu Fei looked at her daughter. It was obvious that she was transmitting her voice to him. Fuck. Old fox, what a fuck. Wang Xian looked at this scene in a daze. Fuck, only an old fox would be able to think of this. You are here to break off the engagement. Alright, I will also announce that I have broken off the engagement. I will also announce that I have found a son-in-law that I am more satisfied with on the spot. What a fuck. If the parties involved in breaking off the engagement in those novels had such an awesome father, there wouldn't be any 3-year agreement. The river flows east for 30 years and the river flows west for 30 years. It seemed that Hu Yan'er wasn't the only one who didn't play by the rules when it came to the annulment of the marriage. Hu Yan'er's father didn't play by the rules either. Wang Xian looked at Hu Yan'er beside him and noticed that her delicate face was constantly changing. Hee. Wang Xian smiled speechlessly and tore the marriage contract in his hand gently. He already owed her a favor. It was good to return it. As for the reputation issues such as being dumped or divorced, he didn't really care about them. This. At this moment, everyone from the ancient Orchid Divine sect was stunned when they saw this scene. Their eyes were fixed on Wang Xian as their expressions kept changing. Good, what a good Hu Fei. You guys are looking for a son-in-law in advance. The middle-aged man on the left said in a low voice with a slightly angry expression. What was this? They had come to break off the engagement, but in the end, the other party had already found a son-in-law for their daughter. Did that mean that before the engagement was broken off, their son had already been cheated on? If this were to spread out, their ancient Orchid Divine sect's reputation would be tarnished as well. What? Ancient Orchid Divine sect? You guys are allowed to find a good daughter-in-law, but I, Hu Fei, am not allowed to find a good son-in-law. Ah. Hu Fei immediately laughed out loud when he saw their defeated expressions. When Hu Yan'er's elder brother saw this scene, the corners of his mouth twitched. The eyes of the elder on the stage flickered as a faint smile appeared on his face. In such a situation, even the princess and experts of the prince's manor could not say anything. Hu Fei, are you deliberately making our ancient Orchid Divine sect look bad? The expressions of the more than 20 people from the ancient Orchid Divine sect did not look good as the middle-aged man in the lead said in a deep voice. It's just the two of you coming? Hu Fei said coldly as they went head-to-head. You. The middle-aged man's face turned gloomy as his expression changed. Hu Fei, you said that this young man is more satisfactory to you. Then, I want to see just how big the gap is between my son and this young man who is satisfactory to you. Also, let my son know the gap between us. Suddenly, the corner of the middle-aged man's mouth slightly curled up as he said in a low voice with an ice-cold face. Chapter 2169. 2169, I don't need to fight you. Let me know the difference between you and me. The young man from the ancient Orchid Divine sect shouted. His eyes were fixed on Wang Xian and his eyes were sparkling. When everyone heard the middle-aged man's words, they were stunned for a moment. Then they started to laugh along with the people from the ancient Orchid Divine sect. Their eyes were also sparkling. Gu Xiaotian was the young master of the ancient Orchid Divine sect. He possessed the best resources and his talent was equally outstanding. He was well known throughout the entire Hidden Tiger planet. Now he was only in his 30s, but he already had a cultivation base at the 6th level demigod realm. In the entire planet there were not many youths who were stronger than him. Furthermore, these youths who were stronger than him were all famous figures. This youth in front of him was definitely not one of them. If Gu Xiaotian were to ruthlessly humiliate him, it would be tantamount to saying that Gu Xiaotian had ruthlessly humiliated the son-in-law of the Foxvein divine race. Hu Fei was blind. This way their ancient Orchid Divine sect would be able to vent their anger. It would also cause the reputation of the Foxvein divine race to be tarnished. Killing two birds with one stone. That's right. Uncle Hu Fei's foresight has always impressed me. Now that Uncle Hu Fei has found a son-in-law that satisfies him, I believe that it is something that I, Gu Xiaodan, cannot compare to. In that case, I would like to seek advice from this friend of mine. Let me see how big the gap is between you and this friend. Gu Xiaotian heard his father's words and immediately walked out. He narrowed his eyes and stared at Wang Xian. That's right. Naturally, all of you have said that your daughter is unparalleled in the world. I would like to see how your son-in-law can compare to Xiaotian. Princess Tianran, who was holding onto Gu Xiaoyan's arm, curled her lips slightly. She stared at Hu Yin, provocatively. No, he hasn't recovered from his injuries. Hu Yin's expression changed slightly when she saw this scene. She immediately said, "Let's talk about this matter when we have the time." Hu Fei's expression also changed slightly when he saw this. He immediately said, although he could sense that Wang Xian's strength had already reached the demigod realm, there should still be a gap between him and Gu Xiaotian. If they were to really spar, Gu Xiaotian would definitely not let go of a chance to humiliate Wang Xian. He would also embarrass the fox-patterned celestial race. Since the matter has been resolved, everyone please return. The old man sitting in the front also frowned slightly and said faintly. He had never met Wang Xian before. At this moment, he also understood that this might be a young man whom his son had randomly found. There was naturally a huge gap between a young man that was randomly found and the young sect master of the ancient Orchid Divine sect. What? He will be a direct descendant of your fox-patterned divine clan in the future. He doesn't even dare to spar with you. Or are you afraid that he will lose too miserably? As soon as the old man finished his sentence, Princess Tianran immediately raised her head and said, "Hee, it's good for young people to spar with each other. What kind of man are you if you are afraid?" The middle-aged man beside the old man said slowly. He picked up the teacup beside him and took a sip. "Uncle Hu Fei, is your son-in-law not strong enough? If that's the case, I can give him an arm." Gu Xiaotian took 2 steps forward and slowly placed an arm behind his back. Provocation, a blatant provocation. Hu Fei's expression was a little ugly. He looked at Wang Xian. "He's injured. Let's not spar with him." Hu Yin looked at Wang Xian and whispered, "If you still don't agree, then your Huan celestial race really has poor taste in finding such a useless son-in-law." The middle-aged man on the left mocked. "Father, there's another possibility. The other party has heard of my name and doesn't dare to make a move." Gu Xiaotian raised his head slightly and stared at Wang Xian with disdain. "You don't dare to make a move." Wang Xian, who had been standing there, swept his gaze across the people from the ancient Orchid Divine sect and landed on Gu Xiaotian. He smiled faintly. He took 2 steps forward indifferently. Wang Xian, you have just woken up. Your injuries are not yet. It's all right. Although your injuries have not recovered, I can still deal with him." Hu Yin said to Wang Xian with some worry. Before she could say anything, she was interrupted by him. "Can you do it? Don't go too far." Hu Fei looked at Wang Xian with an ugly expression when she saw that they had reached this stage. Then she said to Gu Xiaotian, "Swords and sabers have no eyes. If we really hurt this friend or if he were to kneel here, that nephew wouldn't be able to do anything about it." Gu Xiaotian said with a smile. "Ha, Xiaotian, you have to give this uncle of yours some face. It wasn't easy for him to find a son-in-law that he was satisfied with. It wouldn't be good if he was embarrassed." The middle-aged man laughed heartily at the side. "Xiaotian, let him know what a proud son of heaven is." Princess Tianran looked at Gu Xiaotian with adoration and said with her head slightly raised, Don't worry. Gu Xiaotian walked slowly to the center of the hall. He raised his head slightly and gestured to Wang Xian. Oh no, he might not be a match for Gu Xiaodan. Sigh, Gu Xiaotian's influence is ranked among the younger generation. When the members of the fox-striped race saw this scene, they shook their heads secretly. A hint of helplessness could be seen on their faces. Although they didn't know why Wang Xian had suddenly appeared, they weren't optimistic about this battle. I'll let you make the first move. Gu Xiaotian followed with one hand and held a wooden saber in the other. He pointed the saber at Wang Xian provocatively. It's over, it's over. Hu Yan'er covered her eyes and didn't dare to look at this scene. She mumbled to herself. I'll let you make the first move. Otherwise you won't have a chance. Wang Xian walked slowly to the center and looked at Gu Xiaotian indifferently. Haha, interesting. You're the most arrogant fellow I've ever seen. Since you want me to make the first move, then kneel down. Gu Xiaotian revealed a sullen expression when he heard Wang Xian's words. He spoke with a cold expression. With a wave of the wooden saber in his hand, a wooden saber condensed from what attribute was slashed towards Wang Xian's knee. Be careful. Hu Yan'er's voice sounded from the side. On the left, everyone from the ancient Orchid Divine sect was smiling as they watched this scene. Their eyes were filled with ridicule. Wang Xian took a glance at the wooden saber condensed from what attribute. Strangely, his gaze dissipated before it even reached him. Ha! The instant the wooden blade dissipated, Gu Xiaotian was slightly stunned. He looked at Wang Xian in astonishment and their eyes met. At this moment he felt an extremely terrifying pressure coming towards him. This pressure was as powerful as a prison. He was facing an extremely terrifying god of death who was filled with killing intent. In an instant, his forehead was filled with cold sweat and his body was trembling violently. Plop. The next moment, under everyone's shocked gaze, he suddenly fell to the ground, his face full of fear and trembling. No, don't kill me. A terrified voice came from his mouth. Chapter 2170. 2170 facing you, I don't need to make a move. What? What is this situation? At this moment, when everyone saw Gu Xiaotian suddenly prostrate on the ground, trembling all over and shouting not to kill him, everyone in the hall was dumbfounded. What's going on? What is Gu Xiaotian doing? FUCK, what is Gu Xiaotian doing? Is he peeing in fear? Hu Yan'er's brother was the first to blurt out. Peeing in fear. The words reverberated in everyone's mind. Hu Yan'er's hand that was covering her face slowly moved away. She was stunned when she saw Gu Xiaotian lying on the ground, trembling. He quickly looked at Wang Xian and saw him staring at Gu Xiaotian with a calm expression. He opened his mouth slightly. Xiaotian. A soft voice was heard. The voice entered Gu Xiaotian's ears directly. At this moment, more than 20 people from the entire ancient Orchid Divine sect were looking at the scene with extremely astonished and embarrassed expressions. Gu Xiaotian's father's face was extremely gloomy. Go. Bye. At this moment, Gu Xiaotian, who was lying on the ground, suddenly woke up. His body trembled as he stared at Wang Xian with a horrified expression. He hurriedly stood up and hid towards his father's position. Father, his aura is too terrifying. It's too terrifying. Gu Xiaotian's face was pale. His forehead was filled with cold sweat as he pointed at Wang Xian and spoke in fear. The terrifying pressure that was suffocating him was buried deep in his heart, causing him to tremble non-stop. Xiaotian, wake up. Xiaotian, what happened to you? What happened to you? The middle-aged man stared at his son with an extremely unsightly expression. Princess Tianran, who was beside him, was also grabbing Gu Xiaotian in a panic. I'm fine. Gu Xiaotian saw his father and girlfriend and his heart calmed down slightly. However, when he looked at Wang Xian, there was still a trace of fear in his eyes. Someone like you still wants me to kneel here. You don't even have the right to make me fight. I don't need to fight against you. Wang Xian looked at Gu Xiaotian and said calmly. Even though he was severely injured, he didn't even need to fight against a demigod. He could make his opponent lose the ability to fight with his imposing manner and pressure. It was undoubtedly a pipe dream for a demigod at level 6 to make him kneel. Even if Wang Xian didn't use his aura, he could just use his aura that he had been fighting against many powerhouses for a long time. The opponent would tremble when he stood there. The disdainful voice entered everyone's ears and everyone in the hall became excited. The expressions of the people from the ancient Orchid Divine sect were abnormally ugly. They had originally wanted to use Gu Xiaotian to suppress Hu Fei's son-in-law and make him embarrassed. However, they never expected that the other party would just stand there without moving. Their young sect master was so frightened that he nearly peed his pants. If this were to spread out, their young sect master would become the laughingstock of the entire Hidden Tiger Star. It could even be said that the Fox-marked Divine clan wasn't satisfied with Gu Xiaotian's son-in-law, so they directly broke off the engagement and found another one. In this way another cuckold would come down. Their Gulan Divine sect would be humiliated. Princess Tianran looked extremely embarrassed when she saw this scene. What would outsiders say about her? Picking up a fiancé that others didn't want. More than 20 people stood there gloomily. The middle-aged man's body was even trembling. Haha, as expected of our Huan celestial race's son-in-law. Not bad, not bad. In the middle of the hall, the old man stood up excitedly and looked at Wang Xian with admiration. He was in a great mood. His carefree voice resounded throughout the entire hall. Regardless of whether it was a real son-in-law or a fake son-in-law, he was extremely happy about today's matter. Especially since this son-in-law was so good at showing off. I don't need to make a move against you. Ah. That's right, our second brother and Yen, still have good taste. Ha, only such a proud son of heaven is worthy of Yen. No one else is worthy of her. The members of the fox-traced celestial race were also laughing excitedly. As they spoke, they looked at the members of the ancient Orchid Divine sect mockingly. What did you do to Xiaotian? Princess Tianran revealed an angry expression when she heard Wang Xian and the rest's mocking words. She pointed at Wang Xian and questioned him with a flushed face. A defeat is a defeat. Wang Xian looked at Princess Tianran indifferently and said calmly. You. Princess Tianran choked slightly. Her eyes were filled with fury. Phew, since Xiaotian has lost to you, I would like to challenge Miss Hu Yen. I want to let Xiaotian know that he didn't choose the wrong person. Her gaze turned cold as she looked in Hu Yen's direction and said coldly. Princess Tianran not only had a powerful background, but she was also one of the top beauties in the entire Hidden Tiger planet. Gu Xiaotian had suffered a loss at the hands of Wang Xian. She wanted to get him back. Hee Princess Tianran, our Yenner is not your match. Today is the matter between us and the ancient Orchid Divine sect. Now that the matter has been settled, we will have to send our guests off. When the elder in the middle heard Princess Tianran's words, he immediately spoke up. Hu Yen was indeed no match for Princess Tianran. In addition to Princess Tianran's background, he might as well just admit defeat. Admitting defeat was not shameful. Hu Yen saw Princess Tianran's provocation and pouted her lips in slight dissatisfaction. However, when she saw Gu Xiaotian's pale face beside her, her mood turned bad again. Oh, let's go. The middle-aged man from the ancient Orchid Divine sect let out an embarrassed growl and turned around to walk out. It was even more shameful to stay here. Tianran, let's go. Gu Xiaotian pulled Princess Tianran's arm and said softly. Princess Tianran was a little angry as she waved her hand and walked out with a gloomy expression. The middle-aged man who was sitting in front of her stood up slightly and walked out. When he passed by Wang Xian, he paused for a moment and sized him up. Then he left without saying anything. Haha, this is so satisfying. He actually came to our Huan celestial race to break off the engagement. In a while, I have to properly promote the ancient Orchid Divine sect. Seeing them leave, Hu Yen's brother said loudly with a face full of relief. This time I have to thank this little brother. Little brother is very strong. He should have used his aura to suppress Gu Xiaotian just now. If I'm not wrong, little brother should have at least the strength of a peak demigod. The old man in front also walked over with a smile on his face. His eyes were sparkling as he sized up Wang Xian. Old man, you have sharp eyes. Wang Xian nodded his head. His body was severely injured and he could only unleash the strength of the peak of half of his body. His peak of the demigod realm. This is a heaven's favorite. Peak of the demigod realm. This is unparalleled in the entire Hidden Tiger planet. When the people around the fox-striped celestial race heard their family head's words, they were shocked. In their entire clan there were only 3 deity realm experts. They were at the peak of the demigod realm, which was considered the peak of the fox-pattern divine clan. Most importantly, the other party was young. Chapter 2171. 2171 on the peak of 217,110 days. He is actually a powerhouse at the peak of the demigod realm. A peak of the demigod realm in his 30s. He's so powerful. Hu Yen'er looked at Wang Xian in the main hall in astonishment. Her face was filled with astonishment. She had never expected that the young man whom she and her brother had saved would be so powerful. In the entire Hidden Tiger planet, he was definitely a top-notch existence. Yen'er, little brother Wang Xian's injuries have yet to recover. You should bring him back first. Also, go to the spirit medicine room and get 2 pills at the peak of the demigod realm to treat little brother's injuries. Hu Fei's eyes flickered as he looked at Wang Xian and instructed Hu Yen'er. Its father. Hu Yen'er nodded her head and looked at Wang Xian with a smile on her face. Let's go. Thank you for what happened today. If it weren't for you we would have lost face, she said with a smile. Wang Xian nodded his head faintly and followed her to their residence. Hu Fei, who is this young man? As he watched Wang Xian leave, the elder in the middle walked over and asked with a twinkle in his eyes. Father Yen'er and Xiao Ji found him in our Lin Tianxin. They brought him here when he was unconscious. Hu Fei shook her head and seemed to be in deep thought. Yes, grandfather. At that time he fell into our Lin Tianxin. Little sister and I brought him here. He seemed to have just woken up after being unconscious for almost a month. The young man named Xiao Ji immediately echoed. Such a young man has the strength of half a body. He must be the son of a big force. However, with his strength he shouldn't be unknown. A middle-aged man frowned and said, I checked him with my bewitching technique. He has lost his memory. He only knows his name. He doesn't know anything else. Hu Fei said. Lost his memory? The old man pondered, if it were our Fox Vein God clan. Oh. Hearing his father's words, Hu Fei slightly raised his eyebrows. Logically speaking, a hero saves a beauty, and a beauty gives her body to him. Then, if a beauty saves a hero, it should be the same. He mumbled. However, when the people of the Fox Vein God clan heard his words, they were stunned and speechless. She is worthy of our little Yen. The old man nodded his head slowly. The rest of the people listened quietly at the side and did not dare to speak. Wang Xian, these 2 healing pills should be much better after you take them. In the courtyard at the foot of the mountain, Hu Yen'er walked over with 2 pills and handed them to him as she said with a smile. Okay. Wang Xian didn't reject her. He stretched out his hand and took them. How are you so powerful? Gu Xiaotian is so strong, yet he doesn't dare to attack you. He's at the peak of the demigod level. He's much stronger than me. How do you cultivate? You're only a few years older than me, yet you've reached the peak of the demigod level. I'm only at the first level of the demigod level now. Hu Yen'er looked at him with some envy. Don't you have the bloodline of the divine fox? Is it very difficult to cultivate? Wang Xian looked at her and asked curiously. Our bloodline is very thin. The difficulty of cultivation is about the same as that of an ordinary person. How do you cultivate? What attributes do you have? Can you teach me? If I want to be strong, I will beat Princess Tianran to the ground if she provokes me today. Hu Yen'er looked at him and asked repeatedly. She clenched her fists slightly. She had a long white tail with 3 lines on her cheeks. Her every action was charming. Her perfect figure of 1.6 meters was eye-catching. It was no wonder Hu Fei said that his daughter's looks were incomparable. If it's what attribute, I can give you some pointers. Wang Xian looked at her and said faintly. You are also of the wood attribute? Our family has the method to condense Dharma idol and the records of our comprehension. However, it is very troublesome to fully comprehend it. I'm very stupid. My brother is already at the level of a demigod. The gap between us is too big. Hu Yen'er's eyes lit up as she pouted. I have a method that can help you improve quickly. However, you can't tell anyone. Wang Xian smiled at her. Really? I, Hu Yen'er, swear that I will never tell anyone. Hu Yen'er immediately came over and raised her palm in excitement. Miss? Son-in-law. At this moment, the woman's voice came from outside. Ha. Ha. Hu Yen'er was slightly stunned. Wang Xian looked at the woman in astonishment as well. Miss, Master said that the environment here is not good. He wants my son-in-law to move into the courtyard next to Miss. The woman didn't seem to notice their expressions. She walked over and said with a smile. Aunt Chin, he isn't, he was saved by me. Hu Yen-er's face turned red when she heard the woman's words. She quickly explained. What's wrong, miss? Master said that he wants me to move my son-in-law to another place to live. I've also heard about what happened just now. I didn't expect my son-in-law to be so powerful. Good. The woman said to Wang Xian with a smile on her face. Didn't my father say that it was just? In an instant Hu Yen-er's face turned even redder. Wang Xian, don't misunderstand. It should be my father's mistake. She was a little restrained and nervous and didn't know how to explain herself. I know. Your father has already said that he would need me to cooperate for a period of time. Wang Xian smiled and didn't think too much about it. Son-in-law, just come over with this old lady. There's everything there. You don't have to move anything. The old lady gestured to Wang Xian. It's better to live in the courtyard next to me. It's also much more convenient for you to teach me how to cultivate. Hu Yen-er bit her lips and suppressed the shyness in her heart as she spoke to him. I don't mind. I can live anywhere. Wang Xian nodded his head. Let's go, son-in-law and miss. The old lady said with a smile. Auntie Chin, don't call me son-in-law in the future. No, the old master has instructed me not to call you son-in-law. My father. Hu Yen-er stomped her feet and walked at the front. Wang Xian followed behind her and smiled as he scanned his surroundings. The Huan celestial race was huge. They occupied dozens of mountain peaks and each mountain peak was planted with all kinds of flowers and plants. This had a lot to do with the Huan celestial race's cultivation of the wood attribute. He followed the woman to the center of a mountain peak. There were a few courtyards halfway up the mountain. Son-in-law, this is it. From now on, this old woman will be in charge of your daily life. Just tell this old woman if there's anything. After entering the courtyard there was a rockery inside. It was more than 10 times the size of the rockery at the foot of the mountain. Sorry for the trouble. Wang Xian nodded his head. At this moment he realized that Hu Yen-er had already run away. He didn't know what to do. Wang Xian strolled around the courtyard and nodded his head in satisfaction. He came to a pavilion in the courtyard. He took out a cup of tea from the mother nest and brewed a cup himself. Chapter 2172. 2172. At the peak of 2172. The smoke of the tea was rising and the fragrance was pleasant. Wang Xian sat in the pavilion and sipped his tea. The tea entered his stomach and turned into dragon energy to nourish his entire body. Off. My father only asked him to act as a temporary assistant. I can't let my imagination run wild. To cultivate. I came to look for him just to cultivate. That's right. Outside the courtyard, Hu Yen-er patted her little face. She took a deep breath and walked in. Wang Xian, do you have time? You promised to teach me how to cultivate. Hu Yen-er walked over and shouted towards the inside. Come over and have a seat first. Wang Xian waved at her. Are you drinking tea? The fruit wine of our Huan celestial race is very delicious. I'll bring you some later. Hu Yen-er looked at Wang Xian who was sitting there enjoying his tea. She smiled and walked over to sit at the side. Have a cup. Wang Xian took out the teapot and poured her a cup. No, I don't like tea. How are your injuries? Hu Yen-er looked at him and asked with concern. It will take some time for you to fully recover. Drinking this cup of tea will be very beneficial to your cultivation. Wang Xian placed the tea beside Hu Yen-er. Spirit tea. Hu Yen-er took the tea curiously and looked inside. However, she did not sense the spiritual energy inside. She took a sip in confusion. Instantly, a faint fragrance of tea entered her mouth and spread throughout her body. She felt as though she was immersed in a dense wood attribute energy. What is this? A shocked expression appeared on her face. Focus on cultivating and comprehending. Wang Xian looked at Hu Yen-er and said. Hu Yen-er nodded her head heavily and closed her eyes hurriedly. In less than a minute, an aura of a breakthrough was emitted from his body. Wang Xian smiled faintly and took a sip of the tea. The tea was personally planted by the god of divine leaves. In the entire eternal divine leaves, only the god of divine leaves was qualified to drink it. The tea he had was given to him by Huar and Kair, who had taken it from their father. The value of the tea was self-evident. For a demigod level wood-attributed cultivator to consume it, it was far superior to ordinary divine pills and miraculous medicines. It was not difficult for Hu Yen-er to directly gain enlightenment and increase her level. Buzz. Another 5 minutes passed, and Hu Yen-er's strength broke through again. It only took 6 minutes for her to advance from demigod level rank 1 to demigod level rank 3. Off. 10 minutes later, Hu Yen-er opened her eyes. Her entire body was exuding a strong vitality. Her small face was flushed red and filled with excitement. Unbelievable, I actually advanced by 2 levels. Oh my god, what kind of tea is this? It actually has such a terrifying effect. Hu Yen-er exclaimed at Wang Xian. Her eyes lit up. She drank all the remaining tea on the table and immediately sat down cross-legged. However, this time her cultivation did not improve. Even so, Hu Yen-er stood up excitedly. Amazing, amazing. I'm now at the 3rd level of the demigod level. Wang Xian, thank you. She was jumping up and down as she said that. The tail behind her raised up as if she was very happy. The cultivation hasn't started yet. Wang Xian looked at her and said faintly. It hasn't started yet? This is already very impressive. Hu Yen-er was filled with shock as she stared at him with widened eyes. Sit here with your legs crossed. Wang Xian gestured to a seat at the side. Oh, okay. Hu Yen-er obediently sat cross-legged at the side. Wang Xian placed his arm on her shoulder and Hu Yen-er's body trembled. Focus, he said faintly. Following that, the aura of the ancestral tree and the majestic wood attribute enveloped her. In an instant, all kinds of blessings came to her heart and mind. The majestic wood attribute energy entered her body, causing the aura in her body to increase continuously. What is this? What a mysterious aura. This kid has many secrets in his body. At this moment, the elder who was in the incipient saint wings behind Wang Xian sensed the aura coming from Wang Xian's body and widened his eyes. No, I must think of a way to make this kid acknowledge me as his master. But this kid is more cunning. He is not easy to fool. Furthermore, he has 7 attributes and is blessed with great opportunities. I don't seem to be very attractive to him. The old man kept mumbling and scratching his head. Wa, I've broken through. I've broken through again. Half an hour later, Hu Yen-er's excited voice sounded. Wang Xian retracted his palm and exhaled. Alright, that's all for today's cultivation. From now on, I'll help you cultivate for an hour every day. I'm going to recover from the injuries in my body. Wang Xian looked at her with a smile and said with a smile. Brother Wang Xian, you are simply too amazing. You are even more amazing than my father and grandfather. In less than an hour, I have already reached demigod level 4. Princess Tianran is only at demigod level 5. At this speed, I will be able to catch up to her very soon. Hu Yen-er could not help but hold onto Wang Xian's arm and shook it excitedly. Demigod level 5. If nothing goes wrong, I will be able to reach it tomorrow. I need to cultivate to recover from my injuries. Wang Xian said to her. You also need to cultivate, right? Then you should cultivate. I won't disturb you. Hu Yen-er let go of Wang Xian's arm and retreated to the side. She could not help but say happily. Okay. Wang Xian nodded and immediately sat cross-legged at the side. He began to recover from his internal injuries. Hu Yen-er saw Wang Xian entering a meditative state directly. She pouted and sat on the table at the side. She supported her chin with both hands and looked at Wang Xian with a silly smile. She didn't know whether she was laughing at her breakthrough or what she was laughing at. Time passed slowly. Wang Xian stayed in the courtyard every day to recover his strength. Hu Yen-er also went to his courtyard every day to drink tea and cultivate. Every day, after Wang Xian helped her cultivate for an hour, she would lie on the side and watch Wang Xian recover his strength. Brother Fei, our girl has been running to Wang Xian's courtyard every day for the past few days. Isn't it a little bad? In the courtyard next to Wang Xian's, a woman looked at Hu Fei and said with a frown. It's fine, madam. Anyway, everyone outside knows that Yen-er has a fiancé. There's nothing bad about it. Hu Fei shook his head with a smile. But didn't you say that this is just an act? The woman still felt a little uncomfortable in her heart. Madam, let's not get involved in Yen-er's matters. It wouldn't be bad if we can fake it and do it for real. Hu Fei laughed out loud. He would give his full support to his daughter if she could really find such an outstanding young man. Moreover, it would be even more perfect if that Wang Xian could marry into the Huan celestial race. If that kid dares to bully our I won't let him off. The woman shook her head and said helplessly. I've broken through again, I've broken through again. At this moment, Hu Yan'er's excited voice sounded from the pavilion in Wang Xian's courtyard. Today was her 10th day of cultivation with Wang Xian, the peak of the demigod realm. The peak of the 10th day. Chapter 2173. 2173 2173 Fallen Celestial Island. 10 days. In just 10 days Hu Yan'er's strength had risen to the peak of the demigod realm. This was something that Hu Yan'er did not dare to imagine. However, the truth was that she had reached this stage in just 10 days. Brother Wang Xian, you are simply too amazing. Hu Yan'er walked behind Wang Xian with a face full of excitement. She stretched out her hand and massaged Wang Xian's shoulder in a familiar manner. I'm at the peak of the godly state. With my current strength, I can be ranked in the top 10 even if I were to be placed in our clan. If my father and the rest knew about my strength, they would definitely drop their jaws in shock. If anyone dares to challenge me in the future, I will also raise my head slightly and stand there. I will be able to scare them to death by releasing my aura. Hu Yan'er narrowed her eyes slightly as her tail kept moving. When she said this, she couldn't help but laugh. All right. Don't be so smug. Next, I have to recover from my injuries. Wang Xian touched her hand and said with a smile. Hu Yan'er stood behind Wang Xian. When she saw him touching her hand, she lowered her head slightly with a smile on her face. Then you should cultivate first. I will bring you some delicious food. I will call for you in an hour. As Hu Yan'er spoke, she wagged her tail and hopped out of the courtyard. Wang Xian looked at her figure and smiled. Then he slowly closed his eyes. Master asked me to call for you. Hu Yan'er had just walked out of the courtyard when Auntie Qin walked over and spoke to her. Oh, what did my father call me for? Hu Yan'er asked in a good mood. Miss, the people from the main family are here. It seems like something big has happened. The woman replied. Oh, the people from the main family are here? Hu Yan'er was slightly taken aback. She immediately walked towards the main peak of the Huan celestial race. The Huan celestial race was a powerful celestial race in the Divine Tiger dynasty. The Huan celestial race on the Hidden Tiger planet was just a branch of the Huan celestial race. Their main family was located on the Divine Tiger planet. The entire Huan celestial race had more than 20 God Realm experts. They naturally couldn't neglect the arrival of the people from the main family. So many people. When Hu Yan'er arrived at the main peak and saw more than 1,000 people gathered in the hall, she was slightly surprised. She immediately walked over and came to her brother's side. Her gaze swept over them. There were 7 or 8 God Realm experts and a group of young generation members of the Fox Pattern Divine race. Hu Yan'er even had some impression of these young people. They were all the most outstanding disciples of the current generation of the Fox Pattern Divine race. Seeing Hu Yan'er enter, some people swept a glance over. This time, the Fallen Immortal God Island group has attracted countless experts and forces in the Central Star Area's western region. As a powerful God Lord level force from 1,000,000 years ago, it has an incomparably huge treasure inside. Our Fox Pattern Divine clan has decided to head there to seek opportunities. Your branch clan will lead the experts and disciples to follow us. Tomorrow we will head there together with the Divine Tiger, Hidden Tiger Star Divine Dynasty's Imperial family and some other forces. In front of the Great Hall, an old man stood in the center and said to everyone, "It's the Great Elder." In front, Hu Yan'er's grandfather immediately nodded and replied. This time the forces heading to the God Tomb will reach a terrifying level. All disciples, don't disgrace our Fox Vein God clan. The Great Elder nodded and continued. Great Elder, you must be tired from the journey. We will take you to a place to rest. Hu Yan'er stayed in the main hall to watch. Not long after, she led the experts and disciples of the main family out. Brother, why are there so many people from the main family here? The God Tomb, the Fallen Immortal Island, is at the junction of our western region and the central region. They just happened to pass by our planet. Hu Yan'er asked her brother in a low voice. Her brother replied. Oh, no wonder. Hu Yan'er nodded. Little Jianghu, come and receive the senior brothers and sisters from the main family. This time you will follow them and learn more from them. At this moment their father's voice sounded. Yes, father. Hu Ji hurriedly nodded and walked towards the main family's disciples with a face full of smiles. Hello, brothers and sisters. Take care of this little brother. Hu Ji walked over and cupped his hands with a face full of smiles. And the group of young men from the main family nodded indifferently with a trace of arrogance on their faces. This is little sister Yen'er, right? I haven't seen her for more than 10 years and she's getting more and more beautiful. Suddenly, a young man saw Hu Yen'er and his eyes lit up as he said with a smile. Oh. Hu Yen'er looked at the young man and was slightly stunned before she quickly nodded her head. She had no impression of the other party. The young man's words attracted more than 200 disciples to look at Hu Yen'er. When they saw her face, the disciples' eyes sparkled with admiration. Some of the girls sized her up and felt a little jealous. I'll have to trouble senior brother and senior sister to take care of me in the future. Hu Yen'er said politely. We're all family. What realm has sister Yen'er cultivated to? A young man suddenly asked with a smile in the middle of the group of disciples. My sister is a little mischievous. Right now, she's only at the first level of the demigod rank. Before Hu Yen'er could reply, Hu Ji had already helped her reply. The first level of the demigod rank is a little too low. In the future I can give you some pointers. The youth said indifferently. When the group of youths from the Huan celestial race heard his words, they gave him a sidelong glance. Some of the girls looked at Hu Yen'er with envy. Being beautiful had its benefits. Thank you, senior brother. Hu Yen'er smiled and nodded. She didn't say anything else. Hu Ji and Hu Yen'er led the way and brought them to the reception peak. Sister Hu Yen'er, we're new here. Take us around. The young man in the center looked at the courtyard in front of them and said to Hu Yen'er, I'm sorry, I still have some things to do. Big brother, take senior brothers and sisters to have a look around. Hu Yen'er shook her head apologetically. She looked at the time and hurriedly walked over. Senior brothers and sisters, if you want to have a look around, I can take you there. Hu Ji hurriedly said. There's no need. The youth said coldly, turning around and walking towards the courtyard. Haha, how interesting. Our great young master Hu Dongyang was actually rejected. A youth laughed loudly at the youth in the middle. HMP, shut up. TSK, there are times when our great young master Hu Dongyang misses. It's really rare. Hu Ji, who was standing at the back, heard their words and shook his head. He knew the attraction of his younger sister. Such a situation was normal. However, I'm afraid that my brother-in-law is going to be unlucky. I don't know if he can withstand it with his strength. Hu Ji muttered as he looked in the direction of his younger sister and smiled bitterly. Chapter 2174 2174 2174 Life-Killing Sword 1. Brother Wang Xian. In Wang Xian's courtyard, Hu Yen'er ran in and shouted loudly. Ha! Wang Xian, who was recovering from his injuries, opened his eyes and looked at her. What's wrong? Is there something wrong? Wang Xian asked with a smile when he saw her running over. There's something big. I'm afraid I'll have to follow my family and the main family to the divine tomb of the fallen immortal island tomorrow. Are you coming with me tomorrow? Her sparkling eyes stared at Wang Xian with a hopeful look on her face. The fallen immortal island? The divine tomb? Wang Xian raised his eyebrows slightly. I'm not too sure either. I only know that it seems to be the divine tomb of a master god-level powerhouse from 1,000,000 years ago. This time, many powerhouses from the main family of the Fox Pattern Celestial race and the Central Star Field of the Western region will be going. A master god-level divine kingdom is extremely attractive to many factions. Do you want to go? Who knows, we might be able to obtain the master god's inheritance. Hu Yen'er narrowed her eyes slightly, revealing a pair of sharp, fox-like teeth. The tomb of the gods? Go. I'll go with you tomorrow. Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly. He was originally going to the tomb of the gods. However, he did not expect that after more than a month, the god's tomb had already been obtained by the people of the world. He wondered if Ao Jian had any gains in there. That's great. I'll inform father later. Hu Yen'er nodded happily. Are we setting off tomorrow? Wang Xian stood up and asked her. Yes, we'll set off early tomorrow morning. I reckon most of the powerhouses and disciples of the hidden tiger planet will be there. Hu Yin nodded her head. Your strength has improved very quickly now. However, your combat experience has not improved. I will teach you some offensive techniques later. Wang Xian said to her. Thank you, brother Wang Xian. Hu Yin nodded her head happily. Wood attribute, control, entanglement, penetration. Wang Xian explained some offensive techniques of the wood attribute to her. Hu Yin listened and learned with a face full of admiration. A few hours later she went out to look for her parents and brought some food. Then she started to seek advice from Wang Xian. After a sleepless night, when the sun rose the next day, Hu Yin pulled Wang Xian and walked towards the location below. When they arrived at the entrance of the Huan celestial race, Wang Xian saw nearly 2,000 people standing there. Father. Hu Yin, who was pulling Wang Xian, called out to her father. Let's go to your brother's place. Seeing Wang Xian beside Hu Yin, Hu Fei squinted her eyes slightly and said with a smile on her face. Let's go, brother Wang Xian, let's go. She pulled Wang Xian and walked towards the group of disciples. Sister Hu Yin. Some of the disciples from the branch families greeted Hu Yin as they looked at Wang Xian curiously. They had also heard about Hu Yin's fiancée in the past few days. It was not just them. The news had spread throughout the entire hidden tiger planet. Standing there without making a move, he was able to make Gu Xiaotian tremble on the ground. His strength was at the peak of the demigod realm. He was indeed worthy of Hu Yin. While they were sizing up Wang Xian was also sizing up the people around him. The number of members and disciples of the Huan celestial race might not be that many due to their bloodline. There were only over 1,000 disciples in the entire subclan of the hidden tiger planet. This time there were only over 100 people following them. Who is that? At the back, a group of young men from the main clan of the Huan celestial race saw Hu Yin walking over. They were holding onto a young man with a happy look on their faces. They were slightly stunned. Hu Dongyang, I think he's already taken. Hehe. A slightly plump young man teased the incomparably handsome Hu Dongyang. Shut up. Hu Dongyang's gaze swept across the fatty and his expression turned a little ugly. He walked straight towards Hu Yin and Wang Xian. Narrowing his eyes slightly, he locked onto Wang Xian who was beside Hu Yin. The corners of his cold mouth curled up slightly. He didn't go there for other reasons. He just didn't like him and wanted to teach him a lesson. He wanted to embarrass him. There's a good show to watch. The slightly plump young man looked at him as he walked over and teased him. The surrounding disciples of the fox-patterned celestial race looked over. There were more than a dozen of them following behind Hu Dongyang. Hu Dongyang and the rest are here. Hu Dongyang is the most outstanding disciple of our entire generation of the fox-patterned celestial race. His strength is at the peak of the half-body stage. Peak of the half-god stage. How enviable. Is he going to get to know Wang Xian? I think so. After all, Sister Hu Yin's fiancé is also at the peak of the half-god stage. It's only natural for powerhouses to get to know each other. Everyone whispered when they saw Hu Dongyang and the rest walking over with their heads slightly raised. Ha! However, their voices were clearly heard by Hu Dongyang and the rest. When they heard the words of a peak stage demigod, they were clearly stunned. Their faces were filled with astonishment. Even Hu Dongyang's pupils contracted slightly and his body stiffened. Senior brother Hu Dongyang. Hello, senior brothers. Let me introduce you. This is my sister's fiancé Wang Xian. He has the strength of a peak stage demigod. When Hu Ji saw them walking over, he raised his eyebrows and hurriedly introduced them. When Hu Yin heard her brother's introduction, she used her arm to touch his waist heavily. Her face was slightly red. Hee, I didn't expect to meet such a heaven's favorite on the hidden tiger planet. Hu Dongyang's expression changed as he looked at Wang Xian expressionlessly. Initially he wanted to embarrass this kid. Now he could only give up. He never expected that the other party had the strength of a peak stage demigod. Hello. Wang Xian nodded his head faintly at him. Let's go to the teleportation formation. At this moment, a voice was heard. The group of powerhouses in front of them flew straight into the sky. Hu Dongyang flew straight into the sky with a gloomy face. Haha, we've met a tough opponent. The chubby young man's teasing voice continued to ring out. All the disciples of the fox-patterned celestial race looked at Wang Xian, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. You are a femme fatale. I didn't expect your charm to be so great. Wang Xian looked at Hu Yan'er and said with a smile. Who is the femme fatale? I am the femme fatale. Hu Yan'er pouted in dissatisfaction. The two of them flew into the sky and followed a group of experts towards the teleportation formation. The teleportation formation was located in the northern royal city of the Hidden Tiger Planet. It was located in the teleportation square of the northern royal city. When they arrived, more than 10,000 people had gathered in the square. A group of Peak God Realm experts was gathered in the center of the square. The members of the Foxmark Divine Clan are here. There's a conflict between experts in the array on the other side of the teleportation array. The array is being repaired. It will take a while. An old man with a tiger's head embroidered on his chest looked at them from below and said with a smile. Then let's wait for a while. We're not in a hurry. The great elder of the Huan celestial race replied, and the group flew over. It's them? However, beside the teleportation formation, a man and a woman were glaring at Wang Xian and Hu Yan'er with anger. Chapter 2175 2175 2175 Killing Sword 2. 10 days ago, Gu Xiaotian and Princess Tian Ran went to the Huan celestial race to break off the engagement. In the end, they were humiliated and left with their tails between their legs. The news had already spread to the ears of all the major forces and disciples on the Hidden Tiger Planet. Especially when Gu Xiaotian was scared to the ground by Hu Yan'er's fiancé and was trembling, the Huan celestial race spread the news without restraint. After that, when the disciples of the various forces received the news, their faces were filled with shock. After that, when Gu Xiaotian didn't come forward to defend himself, everyone was basically able to confirm that this matter was completely true. This caused Gu Xiaotian to be utterly humiliated. Along with that, Princess Tian Ran, who was on good terms with Gu Xiaotian, was also ridiculed by many people. They called him a boyfriend who picked up someone else and rejected him. When they found out about this matter, both of them were filled with anger. They held a deep grudge against Hu Yan'er and Wang Xian. Now that they saw Hu Yan'er and Wang Xian arriving, their expressions turned even uglier. Let's wait here. At the front, Hu Dongyang said to the disciples of the Huan celestial race. In the Huan celestial race, Hu Dongyang was one of the best. Everyone had to obey his words. The chubby young man would not provoke him for no reason. In terms of strength, the chubby young man was inferior to Hu Dongyang. Ha! The group of people landed on the ground. Wang Xian sensed two hostile gazes and looked over. When he saw Gu Xiaotian and Princess Tian Ran, he gave them a faint smile. However, when the two of them saw Wang Xian's smile, they looked even more embarrassed. They thought he was provoking them. Which one is Hu Yan'er's fiancé now? It should be the young man with two horns beside Hu Yan'er. Is he the young man who caused Gu Xiaotian to not even dare to make a move and just lay on the ground? At this moment, a series of discussions entered their ears. This made Gu Xiaotian and Princess Tian Ran look even more embarrassed. Damnable fellow. Gu Xiaotian's gaze turned over as he growled in a low voice with a gloomy and cold expression. Chimpich, you're not his match, so what's the use of being angry? By the side, Princess Tian Ran coldly snorted at him with an unsightly expression. This caused Gu Xiaotian's expression to become even more unsightly. Tian Ran, with his strength at the peak of the demigod realm, none of the younger generation of our entire Hidden Tiger Planet are his match. Gu Xiaotian lowered his head and said while clenching his fists. Princess Tian Ran's face was filled with unwillingness. Hu Jiaming is here. It seems like he will be going this time too. The fierce tiger beside Hu Jiaming is simply too handsome. At this moment, surprised voices sounded one after another. Many of the surrounding disciples looked over. It was a burly young man with a strong back and a stocky waist. He seemed to be filled with a powerful aura. On his forehead there was the word King. This word was not carved in the later stages, but it was already there. A tiger's tail swayed behind him. He held a sharp sword in his hand, and his bearing was extraordinary. Who is the young man beside him? In order to take care of that young man, Hu Jiaming did not even ride on the fierce tiger. So familiar? Broken into a sword. That's right, broken into a sword. It's actually him. He came out of seclusion? A year ago he became the disciple of the god of killing swords. At that time, even Hu Jiaming wasn't able to become his master. He was the only one who succeeded. Discussions and shocked voices rang out, attracting the attention of all the surrounding disciples. Hu Jiaming was the most outstanding young disciple of the Hidden Tiger planet. He was the son of the true Heaven Lord of the Divine Tiger dynasty and was once the strongest person on the Hidden Tiger planet. Duan Qingjian could be said to be the second strongest person on the Hidden Tiger planet. Other than Hu Jiaming, he was the strongest. However, a year ago, Duan Qingjian and Hu Jiaming became master of the Life Sword God. Hu Jiaming didn't succeed. Instead, Duan Qingjian succeeded. The previous Duan Qingjian was a level 7 demigod. Now he must be even stronger. In fact, from Hu Jiaming's attitude, he shouldn't be any weaker than him. The number 1 and number 2 of our Hidden Tiger planet's young generation. TSK, this aura is something no one can compare to. Especially the broken sword. It's like a sharp sword at this moment, making people not dare to look directly at it. Some people sighed as they looked at the two young men walking over. With 4,000 to 5,000 disciples looking over, it naturally attracted the attention of the Fox Pattern Divine Clan's disciples. TSK, the number 1 and number 2 person on the Hidden Tiger planet, how strong can he be? He's at the peak of the demigod rank 7 and 8. The slightly plump youth looked over and said with slight disdain. The Fox Pattern Divine Clan's disciples looked over and also faintly smiled. The disciples of the main clan of the Fox Pattern Divine Clan really didn't think highly of the demigod rank 7 and 8. At the very least, many of them were stronger than them. How strong? In any case, they're much stronger than you, especially our senior Duan Qingjian. He's definitely very strong now. However, not far away from him, a girl with pretty good looks heard his words and looked at him. Seeing a slightly chubby young man with a fat fox tail, she said with some disdain, "Ah, I'm dying of laughter. Fatty, even some people from the Hidden Tiger planet look down on you." Not far away, Hu Dongyang saw this scene and finally found an opportunity as he said mockingly. Fatty's face turned red as he stared fiercely at the girl. "Little girl, watch your words or I'll strip you naked," he said fiercely with a face full of anger. "Damn Fatty, watch your words." A youth next to the girl heard his words and shouted at Fatty with an ice-cold face. "Ha." When the young man finished speaking, Hu Dongyang, who was behind him, could not help but laugh out loud. "Kid, I think you're courting death. I won't argue with women, but that doesn't mean I won't argue with a retard like you." Fatty's eyes revealed a fierce expression, and his body flashed, instantly appearing beside the young man. Peng! His fist instantly landed on the young man's face, causing him to fly backwards. Itch! When the girl saw the young man beside her fly backwards with his face covered in blood, she let out a cry of surprise. The girl's cry of surprise instantly attracted the attention of everyone in the surroundings. The thousands of disciples from various factions looked over, their faces filled with shock. In the center, when the experts and gods from various factions heard this voice, their gazes swept over. Young and impetuous, let those little fellows deal with it themselves. The first elder of the Fox Pattern Divine race looked over and said with a smile. "Haha, let the little kids play around." The experts from the Hidden Tiger planet's royal manners didn't mind and smiled. It was normal for disciples to have conflicts. Moreover, the rules of the Divine Tiger dynasty forbade fighting. All the disciples knew clearly that it was not a big deal to suffer a little injury. "Trash, how dare you provoke me?" Fatty said with a cold face when he saw the young man flying backward. At the front, Hu Jiaming and Duan Qingjian, who had just arrived, heard the exclamation and looked over. When he saw the young man lying on the ground, Duan Qingjian raised his eyebrows and immediately walked over. Chapter 2176. 2176 2176 Killing Sword 3. Who is that person? How can he be so arrogant? He has a foxtail, so of course he is a member of the Fox-Mark celestial race. However, those disciples don't seem to have seen him before. Could he be a disciple of the main clan of the Fox-Mark celestial race? That's possible. He should be a disciple of the Divine Tiger Star's Fox-Mark celestial race. Some people looked over and discussed in low voices. "Oh, Duan Qingjian and the others have gone over. The ones who were injured are disciples of the Star God Academy. Although Duan Qingjian is a disciple of the Killing Sword God, he is still a student of the Star God Academy. Could it be that he wants to stand up for that young man? At this moment, when the surrounding people saw Duan Qingjian, Hu and Jian Ming walking over, their faces revealed astonishment. Let's go over and greet cousin Jian Ming. Princess Tianran looked over, her eyes sparkling as she spoke to Gu Xiao Tian. As the two spoke, they walked over. Senior Duan. Young Master Hu Jianming. Duan Qingjian and Hu Jianming walked over, and some of the surrounding disciples called out respectfully. Qing Yuan, are you all right? Duan Qingjian walked over to the young man lying on the ground and frowned as he looked. Senior Duan, Duan Qingjian clearly knew the young man. The young man spat out his teeth. Clearly, Fatty didn't stay behind to guard the place. It's a bit heavy. Duan Qingjian looked over and said coldly. You dare to shout at me? This is already a light punishment. When Fatty heard his words, he said disdainfully. A disciple of the Fox Vein Divine Clan's patriarch. Hu Jianming's gaze swept over Fatty and the others as he frowned slightly. Hu Wei is right. Little girl, you better watch your words from now on. Hu Wei pointed at the girl who had just started talking about him and said coldly. I only said that you're inferior to young Master Jianming and Senior Duan Qingjian. You. The girl looked at Hu Wei and said with a pale face. Then let them compete with me. Hu Wei said with a proud face. He had a faction at the peak of the half-body realm. Although he had just stepped into it a few days ago, he was still at the peak of the half-body realm. He had the right to be proud. He naturally didn't care about a girl who provoked him. No wonder you're so arrogant. So you're a disciple of the main family of the Huan celestial race. He has at least the strength of a level 9 demigod. It's not something that the disciples on our planet can compare to. The surrounding people looked at the proud Hu Wei and discussed in low voices. The disciples of the main family of the Huan celestial race could only compare to the divine sons and goddesses of the divine Tiger dynasty's imperial family. It's them who have eyes but don't recognize Mount Tai. This brother, let's just give up now. Hu Jianming cupped his hands at Hu Wei and said. We are all from the same dynasty. I can't be bothered to argue with them. Hu Wei waved his hand and said magnanimously. We can't let this matter go like this. Suddenly, the corner of Duan Qingjian's mouth curled up. He stared at Hu Wei and said coldly. Oh. Hu Wei heard his provocation and raised his brows. Anger appeared on his face. He slowly narrowed his eyes and looked at Duan Qingjian. Brother Qingjian, are you confident that the opponent will be the head disciple of the Fox Vein Divine Clan? Hu Jianming frowned and asked him in a low voice. In the path of sword cultivation, the stronger you are, the stronger you will be. If you don't try, how will you know? If the opponent is only at the 8th or 9th rank, then he will only be SOSO. Duan Qingjian said indifferently, his eyes flashing with strong confidence. Oh. Hu Jianming was slightly startled, his eyes flickering as he looked at Duan Qingjian. Then Brother Qingjian, on behalf of our royal family, you can casually spar. Okay. Duan Qingjian smiled and nodded, his gaze slowly turning towards Hu Wei as he slightly raised his head. After cultivating for more than a year, I can also test my own strength. He said indifferently. He was a member of the Divine Tiger Dynasty, and now he represented the Hidden Tiger Planet's royal family. Even if he faced the Divine Tiger Dynasty's half of the Sky's Huan celestial race, he wasn't the slightest bit afraid. Moreover, his master also had powerful strength. Good. A small hidden tiger planet. I want to see what kind of sword cultivator exists. Hearing his provocation, Hu Wei's face revealed a cold voice. Unfortunately, I'm not at the 8th or 9th rank. As he spoke slowly, a power that belonged to the peak of the demigod realm was emitted from his body. What? Peak of the demigod realm? Hiss, it's actually the strength of a peak of the demigod realm. As expected of the disciple of the main family of the Fox Pattern Divine Clan. So powerful. When everyone sensed the aura from Hu Wei's body, their expressions changed slightly and one by one they retreated. A person from the Hidden Tiger Planet wants to provoke the elite disciples of our Fox Pattern Divine Clan. He's really courting death. Some disciples of the Fox Pattern Divine race sneered when they saw the shocked expressions of the people around them. Cousin, is Duan Qingjian a match for that young man from the Fox Pattern Divine race? Princess Tianran walked to Hu Jianming's side and asked in a low voice. I don't know, but Duan Qingjian is already stronger than me. Hu Jiaming said in a low voice. Is that so? Princess Tianran's face was filled with awe as she looked at Duan Qingjian with sparkling eyes. He peak stage demigod. That's what makes it interesting. However, I only need 3 moves to defeat you. Duan Qingjian stared at Hu Wei and said coldly. Clang? The sharp sword behind him appeared in his hand, and he stood there like a sharp sword. The sharp edge was concealed, and one could not see his actual body clearly. Haha, 3 moves to defeat me? With just you? Hu Wei laughed coldly, and a magical little tree appeared in his hand. His palm dragged the little tree, and he stared coldly at the broken sword. The little tree emitted a resplendent green light, and its branches swayed. First sword. Charge. The broken sword did not hesitate at all, and the long sword in his hand directly stabbed towards Hu Wei. Humph, wait a moment, I'll make you kneel here. Hu Wei's palm shook, and the branches directly coiled towards the sharp sword. Second sword return. The first sword had just been released, and Duan Qingjian once again lightly shouted. Behind Hu Wei, a returning sword appeared out of thin air and attacked him. Ah! He was slightly startled, but the small tree branches grew crazily and surrounded him. Swish, swish, swish. At this moment, the killing swords had already arrived. The tree branches welcomed them one by one. However, what shocked Ling Hu Wei and the fox-marked divine race was that the tree branches were directly cut off. Hu Wei's expression changed slightly. Countless tree branches gathered together and attacked the 2 sharp swords like venomous snakes. 10,000 swords. At this moment, the cold voice of the broken sword rang out again. Tens of thousands of sharp swords hovered in the air around Hu Wei. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Half of the sharp swords were heading straight for Hu Wei. Oh no! Hu Wei's expression changed drastically when he saw this scene. So powerful. Everyone around him was shocked when they saw Wang Xian's attack. Bang, bang, bang. The sharp swords landed on the branches and quickly sliced them apart. I've lost. Hu Wei, who had a hint of a humiliated voice, growled in a low voice with an embarrassed expression. Chapter 2177. 2177 2177 Killing Sword 4. Hu Wei actually lost. Oh, how is this possible? They are just a disciple of the hidden tiger planet. The third move wasn't fully unleashed. He only used 1/3 of it before he was defeated. This swordsman is so strong. When the Fox Vein Divine Race disciples saw this scene, their expressions changed slightly. They were all shocked. Around them, the disciples of the hidden tiger planet looked at the broken sword in shock. As expected of the killing sword god's disciple. He's so strong. Hiss, in just a year, the broken sword has followed the killing sword god to such a realm. All the disciples looked at the broken sword in awe. Even Hu Jiaming's pupils constricted slightly. His eyes were filled with shock. He only knew that the broken sword was very strong, but it was not that strong. What a sharp sword, what a killing sword. Seeing this scene, Hu Dongyang's face was filled with a solemn expression. To be able to defeat Hu Wei in just 2.5 moves, even he himself could not do it. Facing those densely packed sharp swords, he had to consider whether he could receive them. With such strength, it's possible for him to even contend against those 2 guys from the imperial family. Hu Dongyang muttered. When the Hu and Celestial Race's disciples heard his evaluation, their expressions became even more shocked. Contend against the most outstanding disciples of the Divine Tiger Dynasty? This swordsman was so strong. Although my swordsmanship isn't 1% of masters, defeating you is enough. Although the hidden tiger planet isn't the main planet of the Divine Tiger Dynasty, it's not a place where you can be impudent. Duan Qingjian stared at Hu Wei arrogantly and said coldly. Hu Wei's expression kept changing when he heard Duan Qingjian's rebuke. He was extremely embarrassed. He's actually so strong. At the back, Princess Tianran and Gu Xiaotian were shocked when they saw how strong Duan Qingjian was. Princess Tianran's eyes sparkled and she looked hesitant. Cousin. She called out to Hu Jianming beside her in a low voice. Ah, Tianran? Hu Jianming heard her and looked over in confusion. Cousin, can you get Duan Qingjian to help me take revenge on someone? She bit her lips and said in a low voice. Oh. Hu Jiaming raised his eyebrows, looked at her and then looked at Gu Xiaotian. Cousin, this is a small token of my appreciation. Gu Xiaotian gritted his teeth and took out a treasure from his interspatial ring and handed it over. Hu Jiaming looked over and his face was full of smiles. He slowly nodded his head. He had also heard about his cousin and Gu Xiaotian in the past 2 days. He walked over to Duan Qingjian, who was standing proudly in the middle, and said a few words in a low voice. "Oh, since Brother Jianming has spoken, it's just a small matter." Duan Qingjian looked at Princess Tianran and Gu Xiaotian's positions and nodded indifferently. Princess Tianran saw that he had agreed and revealed an excited expression. A trace of malevolence flashed across her face and she immediately walked towards Duan Qingjian. "Brother Qingjian, I hope that you will teach him a good lesson and make him lose face in front of everyone." Princess Tianran walked over and said, "It's a small matter." Duan Qingjian nodded. Although he was very strong now, his background wasn't very deep in the past and he wanted to make friends with some influential people. The entire Hidden Tiger planet was under the control of Princess Tianran's father and Tiger Sword Ming's father. Making friends with them and helping them deal with some people was just a small matter. What are they doing? Some people saw Princess Tianran, Gu Xiaotian, and the rest walking to Duan Qingjian's side and whispering to each other. Their eyes flickered as they thought of something. Someone humiliated Brother Gu Xiaotian and Princess Tianran 10 days ago. Can you give them an explanation today? Duan Qingjian suddenly opened his mouth and spoke slowly. His gaze shifted to the back of the Huan celestial race. Ha! When they looked over, Wang Xian and Hu Yen frowned slightly. Not good. Princess Tianran and Gu Xiaotian want revenge. Hu Ji's expression changed slightly when he saw Duan Qingjian looking over. He growled at Wang Xian and the rest in a low voice. "Pitch, we didn't humiliate them 10 days ago. They were just asking for it." Hu Yen looked at Duan Qingjian and snorted. Then she looked at Princess Tianran and the others. "Do you think you can find someone just because you can't get the situation back? I really look down on you." She continued coldly. "These few days your Foxvein race spread rumors about us. Do you really think that I won't do anything to you?" Princess Tianran stared at Hu Yen coldly. "You should know the truth in your hearts." Hu Yen said coldly. "All right, no matter what, you will have to pay a price for spreading rumors. I heard that you are also at the peak of the demigod level. I would like to challenge you. Let's spar with each other. We won't be cowards, right?" Duan Qingjian interrupted them. He held his sword lazily and crossed his arms. He raised his head slightly and taunted Wang Xian. Even though he knew that he had the strength of a peak-stage demigod, he didn't take it to heart. He now had the strength of a peak-stage demigod. He believed that he was undefeatable by relying on his swordsmanship. Even if he were to meet the divine son of the divine Tiger Dynasty's royal family, he wouldn't be afraid at all. When the people around saw this scene, their eyes flickered. Who could tell that Princess Tianran and the rest wanted revenge? It all depended on whether Hu Yen and the rest would respond or not. Even if they didn't respond, there wasn't much of a problem. They just wanted Princess Tianran and the rest to mock them. This was purely to disgust them. "Don't agree. That broken sword is a little strong. Even if we don't accept the challenge, it's fine." Hu Ji whispered to Hu Yen and Wang Xian. "Why don't you accept the challenge?" Hu Yen raised her head slightly and spoke loudly. She looked at Wang Xian with a look of eagerness in her eyes. She had seen the attack from Broken Sword earlier. She was confident that she could withstand it. "Do you want to accept the challenge? This is interesting. I would like to see who is the strongest person among the younger generation of our Hidden Tiger planet." It should be Duan Qingjian. His strength is too terrifying. From this, it can be seen that the Killing Sword God's strength is also very terrifying. Some people were discussing. They were hoping that Wang Xian would fight with Duan Qingjian. Hu Dongyang and the rest of the Huan celestial race also looked at Wang Xian's position. Their eyes were sparkling. Go, believe in yourself. However, at this moment, a scene that shocked everyone appeared. Hu Yen's fiancée suddenly patted Hu Yen and said with a smile. Upon seeing this scene, everyone was a little dumbfounded. What? Let Hu Yen go on stage? What kind of joke was this? Yes. Hu Yen's face was filled with excitement. Ever since her cultivation had risen to the peak of the demigod realm, she had not displayed her strength. Even her father did not know her current strength. Today she was able to amaze everyone. Brother Wang Xian, You don't have the strength to challenge me. Let me challenge you. As she spoke, she held a staff in her hand and walked forward. Chapter 2178. 2178 Dragon King's respect for the heartless sword principle. This, younger sister, what are you doing? Seeing Hu Yen'er come to the center of the scene, Hu Ji was slightly stunned and looked at his younger sister with a stutter. Everyone around also looked at her in astonishment. Is Hu Yen'er here to make a joke? She seems to only have the strength of a first-level demigod? Some of the disciples who knew Hu Yen'er looked at her in astonishment. Was this a joke? The disciples of the Huan celestial race frowned slightly. You're going on stage? Hu Yen'er, are you here to make a joke? Why don't I spar with you? Princess Tianran stared at Hu Yen'er and said disdainfully. Sure, but the current you is no longer qualified. Hu Yen'er raised her head happily and raised the wooden staff in her hand. Whoosh! She waved her arm and a sharp wooden spike directly attacked Princess Tianran. Hu Yen'er, you're looking for humiliation. Princess Tianran's face turned cold and she was ready to fight back. However, before he could make a move, Broken Sword, who was standing in the middle, had a slight change in expression. The long sword in his hand directly blocked the wooden spear. Bang! A collision sound was heard. The sharp sword in Duan Qingjian's hand swayed. Peak of the demigod rank. His face revealed a solemn and shocked expression. He couldn't help but exclaim. What? When everyone around heard Duan Qingjian's words, their faces revealed a shocked expression. Especially Princess Tianran, Gu Xiaotian, and the others. Their faces were filled with disbelief. How is this possible? She is clearly at the first level of the demigod level. How can she be at the peak of the demigod level? Princess Tianran could not help but exclaim. This. Even Hu Ji looked at his sister in disbelief. He was almost certain that half a month ago, his sister was still at the first level of the demigod level. How could she be at the peak of the demigod level? He looked at Wang Xian who was beside him abruptly and his expression changed drastically. If his sister had reached the peak of the demigod realm, it must be because of him. However, was it possible to raise her to the peak of the demigod realm in such a short period of time? Peak of the demigod realm. The disciples of the main clan of the Fox-Striped God clan were also shocked. Out of the tens of thousands of disciples in their main clan, only 2 of them had reached the peak of the demigod realm. However, there were 2 peak of the demigod realm in this branch clan. You do have the qualifications to make me fight. However, similarly, I will defeat you in 3 moves. Duan Qingjian stared coldly at Hu Yen'er as his long sword slowly pointed at her. If it was just those 3 moves, it might not be enough. Hu Yen'er raised her head with confidence. Is that so? Duan Qingjian narrowed his eyes slightly. Charge and kill. Return. The long sword in his hand stabbed forward. At the same time, the long sword in his hand shook and directly floated in the air above him. He used 2 moves at once. Move flowers to connect wood, 100 flowers bloom. Hu Yen'er raised the staff in her hand, and branches and flowers bloomed around her. The flowers emitted a magical fragrance and directly attacked Duan Qingjian. The beauty was filled with killing intent. At the same time, 2 resplendent wooden spears met the 2 returning swords. Bang bang. The wooden spears collided with the sharp swords, and the wooden spears directly split apart. The sharp swords directly pierced through the wooden spears. However, at this moment, thorns began to twine around the wooden spears. What terrifying control! When Hu Dongyang saw Hu Yen'er's move, his face revealed a shocked expression. He blocked it. Duan Qingjian's 2 moves were blocked. When the surrounding people saw this scene, they were also slightly shocked. They were somewhat shocked by Hu Yen'er's strength. 10,000 swords. Duan Qingjian's expression also changed slightly as he let out a low roar. Tens of thousands of sharp swords appeared in the sky and instantly attacked Hu Yen'er. However, at this moment, flower petals had already attacked Duan Qingjian. Bang, bang, bang. The flower petals collided with the sharp swords, making a noise that sounded like metal colliding. The flower petals were cut into pieces, floating toward the broken sword. Buzz. When the flower petals were scattered around the broken sword, the Fox-Mark God clan's special talent, charm, took effect. The broken sword's face stiffened, and the sharp swords in the air paused. Bloom. Hu Yan'er grabbed the flower petals and let out a soft shout. Each flower was emitting a dark green light, and each flower had a needle on it. The flower petals spun and covered the broken sword. Shit. When the broken sword reacted, the flower petals had already covered the broken sword. His face changed slightly and he quickly retreated. Heartless sword. He roared and countless rays of golden light shot out from his body. The golden light instantly shot out. Rays of golden light shot towards the petals that surrounded him. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The petals were chopped into pieces. Pierce? However, at this moment, Hu Yan'er let out a soft cry and the sharp thorns on the petals shot out. Ah. His expression changed slightly and his face was instantly covered by the sharp thorns. Although his injuries were not serious, it made his expression extremely ugly. You're courting death. Ice-cold killing intent shot out from his body. He slowly raised his arms and pressed his palms together in the air. His entire person was like a sharp sword. Hiss! Hu Yan'er actually injured the broken sword. How powerful. When the surrounding people saw the furious roar of the broken sword, their faces revealed a shocked expression. Hu Yan'er actually had the upper hand. All of this caused them to be in a daze. Behind them, Princess Tianran and Gu Xiaoyan's bodies were slightly trembling. Hu Yan'er actually had the strength of a peak-stage demigod. She actually had the upper hand. But even if they didn't have the upper hand, Hu Yan'er and the others were already in an undefeatable position. 2 peak-stage demigods. What could the two of them compare with? Background? But talent and strength were more important. What's going on? The battle over there is very intense. The aura of a peak-stage demigod? At this moment, at the center of the teleportation array, the experts from the various major factions who were talking sensed the violent energy here and were slightly stunned. The 2 princes of the hidden tiger planet and the god-level experts of the fox pattern divine race looked over and slightly frowned. Let's go over and take a look. What are you guys doing? One of the princes frowned and walked towards the place where the battle was taking place. This sword technique of Duan Qingjian is somewhat familiar. Is he from the inherited Dragon Guard? His talent is pretty good. Wang Xian looked at the battle and thought to himself. The sword technique of Duan Qingjian was somewhat familiar, especially this move that he was using now. It should have come from the Dragon Guard of the Golden Swordfish. Of course Hu Yan'er would not lose. Even though her strength had improved a little too quickly, with his guidance and the assistance of the ancestral tree's energy, it would be difficult for anyone to defeat her in the same level. I won. Wang Xian looked ahead and said calmly. The messy flowers are becoming more and more mesmerizing. You lost. At this moment, Hu Yan'er's joyful laughter rang out. In the middle, just as broken sword broke through the countless petals, he could feel the sharpness coming from behind him. That was the wood element's penetrating power. Blossoming chaos, bewitching eyes. She had already arrived behind him. Broken sword, whose face was covered in blood from the sharp thorns, had a ferocious expression on his face. He could not believe it. He could not believe that he would actually lose. He had yet to unleash his body transformation divine sword. She won. Hu Yan'er actually won. Everyone around widened their eyes slightly. Their faces were filled with shock. Hu Yan'er raised her head slightly and withdrew the wooden spear in her hand. She looked at Wang Xian as if she wanted to claim credit for herself. I have not lost yet. All of a sudden, Duan Qingjian, who had transformed into a sword, let out a ferocious roar. He turned around unwillingly and attacked Hu Yan'er with his body as a sword. Ah! Hu Yan'er was stunned when she saw him suddenly turning around to attack. Damn it! Wang Xian's pupils contracted slightly when he saw this scene. Chapter 2179. 2179 Dragon King's Respect for the Heartless Sword Principle. Hidden Tiger Planet's Teleportation Array Square. Hu Yan'er stood behind Duan Qingjian. She thought that she had already won, but she did not have the slightest bit of defense. She never thought that Duan Qingjian would suddenly attack. She, who did not have much battle experience, was momentarily stunned. She did not even know how to resist. The surrounding people did not expect Duan Qingjian to suddenly turn around and continue his attack. The expressions of the disciples changed slightly. Wang Xian's pupils constricted slightly. His eyes were filled with a violent killing intent. However, his current combat strength had only recovered to about 2 wisps of divine fire. At this close distance he was already too late. Stop. However, at this moment the expressions of the gods who were rushing over changed slightly when they saw this scene. The first elder of the fox pattern divine race waved his arm, and a wooden shield instantly appeared in front of Hu Yen'er. Ka. However, although the first elder of the fox pattern divine race had already ignited 7 wisps of divine fire, the defense that he hastily released wasn't very strong. It had only reached the peak of the demigod realm. The move of the broken sword had an incomparably terrifying destructive power. Its defense was extremely urgent, and a powerful force landed on Hu Yen'er's body. Bang! In an instant Hu Yen'er spat out blood. Wang Xian moved his body and was about to fly over. However, Hu Fei, who was closer to her, went over with a pained expression and hugged her daughter. I'm fine. Luckily I'm fine. Hu Fei took a look at her daughter's injuries and heaved a heavy sigh of relief. Damn it. Wang Xian looked over and heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Hu Yen'er was fine. However, at the next moment, Wang Xian moved his body and a grey longsword pierced through the broken sword. Brother Qingjian, be careful. The sudden change caused everyone's expression to change. This bunch of brats. At the position of the gods, an old man's expression changed slightly as anger appeared on his face. He pushed his palm forward and a flaming palm attacked the grey longsword released by Wang Xian. Bang! What? The flaming palm landed on the longsword. However, what shocked the old man was that his attack did not completely block the longsword. Not good. At this moment, Duan Qingjian's expression changed slightly when he saw this scene. He hurriedly dodged to the side. However, Wang Xian's full-strength attack, which was filled with anger, was still not something he could completely dodge even though most of his strength had been reduced. Ah! A scream came out from the mouth of the broken sword. Everyone looked over and saw that the arm that was connected to the broken sword was directly cut off and fell to the ground. Everyone's expression changed when they saw this scene. Stop! At this moment an angry shout was heard. The old man with a tiger's head embroidered on his costume immediately stood in front of the broken sword and immediately took both of his arms and attached them to it. He frowned and glanced at Wang Xian. His face was filled with displeasure. Hiss. When everyone around saw this scene they couldn't help but take a deep breath. They never expected that Wang Xian would actually dare to kill him directly. Moreover, he even chopped off Duan Qingjian's arms directly. You actually chopped off my arms. Duan Qingjian's face was filled with cold sweat. He roared at Wang Xian with a ferocious and furious expression. Not only do I want to chop off your arm, I also want to kill you. Wang Xian said coldly as he walked straight towards him. Stop. How dare you? Don't you remember the rules of the Divine Tiger Dynasty? Do you want me to tell you? The old man standing beside Duan Qingjian looked a little embarrassed as he shouted sternly. You should have seen clearly what happened just now. There's no need to judge who's right and who's wrong. Since he wants to fight, I'll play with him. Wang Xian looked at the old man and said calmly, this matter really needs to be explained to us Huan celestial race disciples. Hu Yen'er's grandfather walked over with a cold expression. They had already witnessed the scene just now. When he saw that his granddaughter was injured, he stared at Duan Qingjian with a cold expression. When Duan Qingjian saw that everyone from the Huan celestial race was staring at him coldly, his expression changed slightly. He has already cut off my arm. What else do you want? He said to Hu Yen'er's grandfather with an unsightly expression. He was defeated, but he didn't admit defeat and launched a sneak attack. He broke the rules and only lost 2 arms. Do you think this matter is over? Hu Dongyang and the others also stared at Duan Qingjian coldly as they spoke. They were disciples of the Fox Pattern Divine Race, so they naturally spoke up for the Fox Pattern Divine Race. I didn't admit defeat in the battle just now. Don't think that I'm afraid of you. My master is the killing sword god. Duan Qingjian's body trembled as he growled with an embarrassed expression. Brother Duan Qingjian has the strength of a peak demigod. He might have been a little reckless just now. This person has already chopped off 2 of his arms. Let's forget about this matter. Hu Jiaming frowned slightly and said, "That's right. Hu Yan didn't suffer much injury either. Moreover, Duan Qingjian didn't admit defeat in the battle just now. She was naive to think that she had won." "That's right. How can there be a one-sided announcement of victory in a sparring match?" As Hu Jiaming's voice fell, Princess Tianran and a few others said from the side, "Killing Sword God." When Hu Fei and the others heard this name, their pupils constricted slightly, and their faces were filled with fear. The Killing Sword God that appeared more than a year ago. The eyes of the first elder of the Huan celestial race flickered as he asked Hu Fei and the others. "It's the first elder." Hu Fei nodded his head. "Let's drop this matter. From now on, all the disciples will spar with each other. The sparring will end when the sparring ends." A prince from the hidden tiger planet spoke up. "Qingjian, are you all right?" Seeing that the matter was over, Princess Tianran and the rest of the Hu Jian immediately walked to Duan Qingjian's side. "I'm fine." Duan Qingjian nodded his head with an extremely ugly expression. "Just you wait." He glared at Wang Xian with a face full of hatred and growled coldly, "I think you want to die." Killing intent shot out from Wang Xian's eyes. "All right, Xiao Xian, come here." Hu Fei felt the killing intent from Wang Xian and was satisfied. He shouted at him. Wang Xian hesitated for a moment and walked over. "Let's forget about this matter. Yan didn't suffer any serious injuries. That kid's master is the life-killing sword god. He is very strong." Hu Fei saw him walking over and said softly, "How strong?" Wang Xian raised his eyebrows. "His swordsmanship is very terrifying. He once killed 4 wisps of divine fire god in an instant. He has a strange personality and is not easy to get along with. Moreover, that god of killing sword seems to have a few senior and junior brothers. Of course, our fox pattern celestial race is not afraid of that god of killing sword. It's just that we have not reached that stage yet. After all, that broken sword is also an elite disciple of the divine tiger dynasty." Hu Fei whispered, "Let's drop it." The first elder of the fox vein divine race nodded slightly. Clang! At this moment, a sharp metallic sound came from the distant horizon. Everyone felt the sharp swords in their hands tremble slightly. 3 figures flew over on their flying swords. "It's the killing sword god." Everyone looked over with shocked expressions. Chapter 2180. 2180 Dragon King under the merciless way of the sword. Slayer sword god, he actually came. Who are the 2 figures next to him? They are both wearing the same golden attire. Are they fellow disciples? Back then, Slayer sword god killed 4 wisps of divine fire god with a single sword strike. He was known as the Slayer sword god, the sword god. I heard that Slayer sword god has a solitary personality and is not easy to get along with. Back then, the prince and the others wanted to befriend him, but they did not meet him in person. However, his strength is absolutely terrifying. He only has 1 disciple. Do you think he will avenge his disciple? When they saw the 3 figures flying over from the horizon, everyone was slightly shocked. Slayer sword god's name rose to prominence a year ago. In the entire hidden tiger planet, his strength was definitely at the peak. The 2 people beside Slayer sword god also emitted a terrifying sword light. Their entire bodies are like sharp swords. Their strength might not be weaker than his. The group of gods looked over and revealed a look of astonishment. They are indeed very strong. The first elder of the fox pattern celestial race looked over and felt the sharpness coming from their bodies. He spoke slowly. "The master of broken sword is here." When the surrounding disciples saw this scene, they were also shocked. One by one, they raised their heads and looked over. "Cousin, do you think that broken sword's master will find trouble with Wang Xian when he sees him injured?" When Princess Tianran saw this scene, a look of anticipation appeared on her face. "I don't know." Hu Jiaming frowned and shook his head slowly. He wasn't sure about the killer sword god's temper and personality. However, since all the experts of the fox pattern celestial race are here, nothing should happen. He said lightly. "That's true." Princess Tianran nodded in disappointment. "Master." Duan Qingjian saw his master and the others flying over and immediately went over to welcome them. What happened?" A middle-aged man on the left looked at Duan Qingjian and asked immediately when he saw the injuries on his body. "Master, I was ambushed and my arms were cut off." Duan Qingjian lowered his head and said softly, "It's the Dragon King's aura." At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the side. The middle-aged man who was known as the god of killing swords was slightly taken aback. He turned his head abruptly and looked down. Beside him, two middle-aged men stared at Wang Xian's figure with eyes filled with respect. Swoosh! The life-killing sword god hurriedly followed closely behind with his body slightly bowed. What are they doing? Could it be that the life-killing sword god is looking for trouble with Hu Yan'er's fiancée? No way. All the experts from the Hu celestial race are here. Below, everyone's expression changed slightly when they saw the life-killing sword god and the other two terrifying sword gods flying straight towards Hu Yan'er's fiancée. I'm going to look for trouble with them. Princess Tianran and Gu Xiaotian had expectant expressions on their faces when they saw this scene. The members of the Hu celestial race frowned slightly. Brother Wang Xian. Hu Yan'er recovered a little and walked towards Wang Xian with some worry. Hee. Wang Xian looked at the three people flying over and revealed a smile instead. He looked at them indifferently. Slayer Sword God and the rest landed on the ground and quickened their pace. Wang Xian took 2 steps forward slowly. Everyone around looked over and their faces were filled with astonishment. Was Slayer Sword God really going to offend the fox pattern celestial race for his disciple? However, with Slayer Sword God's personality, it was really possible. Some people thought to themselves, "Greetings." However, when they thought that the god of killing swords was going to punish Hu Yan'er's fiancée because of his disciple's matter, a scene that shocked and stunned everyone appeared. The god of killing swords and the other 2 extraordinary god of swords knelt on the ground and shouted loudly. However, he didn't say anything. Wang Xian waved his arm and stopped them. "Greetings, king." The 3 of them were slightly stunned. They continued to kneel on the ground and shouted respectfully. "Greetings, king? King?" Everyone had an incredulous look on their faces when they saw this scene. They looked at this scene in a daze. Especially the members of the Hu celestial race, Hu Fei, Hu Ji, and Hu Yan. They opened their mouths slightly and looked at this scene in shock. What was going on? The god of sword, who was so famous that even the king of the hidden tiger planet wanted to befriend him, was actually kneeling in front of Wang Xian. He even addressed Wang Xian as king directly. What? Behind him, Broken Sword walked over with a puzzled look on his face. When he saw this scene, his face was completely frozen. How was this possible? Your strength has improved quite well. However, there's something wrong with the disciples you taught. Wang Xian's gaze swept across the 3 of them. The 3 of them were naturally the dragon guards who had left the dragon palace for more than 3 years. The 3 of them in front of him were obviously the stronger ones among the dragon guards. Wang Xian was very satisfied with their strength. However, he was a little dissatisfied with their disciples. He was even a little displeased. "Wang, it's my fault for not teaching him well." The expression of the dragon guard on the left changed and he immediately shouted. Following that, he immediately stood up and turned around to look at Duan Qingjian. "Master." Duan Qingjian looked at his master's cold expression. His expression changed slightly as he shouted softly. Whoosh! However, what happened next shocked everyone. The killing sword god waved his arm at the broken sword, and a sharp sword flashed past. Under everyone's shocked gazes, a long sword pierced through the broken sword, and then a golden light swept through his body. Wang! The golden light flashed and the broken sword completely disappeared. Ah! Some timid girls saw this scene and screamed in fear. Everyone around could not help but take a step back. After killing the broken sword, strands of golden sharp swords revolved around the god of Slayer Sword. Everyone could sense that the sword radiance on his body was even more terrifying. Anyone who offends the king shall be killed without mercy. He turned around and knelt down towards Wang Xian. "You've taken another step forward. Get up." Wang Xian said slowly to them. This was the Heartless Sword Principle. The Dragon King was revered and the Heartless Sword Principle could kill anyone. Those who cultivated the Heartless Sword Principle would kill anyone who offended the Dragon King. "Yes, King." The 3 dragon guards nodded and stood behind Wang Xian without saying a word. As the dragon guards, they were the Dragon King's most loyal guards. When they saw the Slayer Sword God and the other 2 powerful sword gods standing silently behind Hu Yan'er's fiancée, everyone was shocked. They looked at the young man in a daze. With just one sentence, the Slayer Sword God killed his own disciple with a single strike. They stood behind the young man like guards. Who was he? What was the identity of Hu Yen-er's fiancé? How could he have such terrifying subordinates? That was the powerful life-slaying sword god. Not only was the crowd shocked, even Hu Yen-er, Hu Fei, Hu Ji and the rest were staring at Wang Xian in disbelief. Chapter 2181. 2181 What was his identity? Brother Wang Xian, you are. Hu Yen-er stared at Wang Xian in disbelief. She opened her mouth and felt extremely unfamiliar when she looked at Wang Xian in front of her. Three powerhouses who even their father and grandfather were afraid of were actually kneeling in front of him. What was his identity then? An emperor of the Celestial Dynasty? Your memory didn't disappear. Hu Fei frowned slightly as she stared at Wang Xian. Wang Xian's identity shocked them. It's not convenient to reveal it. Wang Xian looked at them and shook his head slightly. It's all thanks to brother Wang Xian that my sister was able to reach the peak of the demigod realm. At this moment, Hu Ji suddenly opened his mouth and asked Wang Xian. Wang Xian nodded his head. Brother Wang Xian is very powerful. He managed to raise my strength to the peak of the demigod realm in just 10 days. Hu Yen looked at Wang Xian and said with a smile on her face. I actually neglected Yen-er's cultivation in such a short period of time. Hu Fei was stunned as he looked at his daughter in a daze. He never expected that his daughter, who was at the first level of the demigod realm, would suddenly rise to the peak of the demigod realm. This was something that even the entire Huan celestial race would find difficult to achieve. In order to quickly nurture a disciple, this disciple had to have a strong comprehension ability. He understood his daughter. Her comprehension ability was not bad, but she definitely could not reach such a level. However, there was only one possibility for her to forcefully rise to the peak of the half-body realm within 10 days. Rare and mystical heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Usually, even gods would spy on such things. When the surrounding people heard their conversation, their gazes also landed on Hu Yen. The gods were astonished, and the disciples watched enviously. 10 days to raise half a step to the peak of the demigod realm was a terrifying thing. However, the most enviable thing was that Hu Yen-er's fiancé seemed to have a powerful background. The killing sword god had the strength of at least 5 wisps of divine fire, yet he directly knelt down and proclaimed himself king. One could imagine his background. He was definitely not weaker than the current Huan celestial race. In fact, he was much stronger. Princess Tianran and Gu Xiaotian watched this scene with unsightly expressions. At this moment, their hearts were filled with reverence. Brother Wang Xian, are you leaving? Hu Yen-er looked at the 3 dragon guards behind him and asked with a frown. I'm going to the fallen immortal island as well. Furthermore, I just happened to bump into the 3 of them. Wang Xian shook his head at her and said with a smile, Don't worry, I won't be leaving for the time being. Oh. Hu Yen-er was glowing. I have something to ask them. Wang Xian spoke to Hu Yen-er, Hu Fei and the rest before walking to the side. This young man is not simple. He is not at the peak of his physical strength. Judging from his actions just now, he must have ignited the divine fire. When the great elder of the Huan celestial race saw Wang Xian leaving, he walked over and spoke to Hu Fei, Hu Yen-er and the rest calmly. Great elder, he was picked up by my brother and I at a place in our family. At that time he was injured. Hu Yen-er said softly. This is a good thing. Since ancient times, heroes cannot overcome the beauty barrier. Little Yen-er is very beautiful. Hu Yen-er, who had a smile on her face, said. Even her attitude was much better. This was not only because of Hu Yen-er's current strength at the peak of the demigod realm, but also because of that mysterious young man. If Hu Yen-er really married that young man, it would be very beneficial to their fox-patterned celestial race. Hu Yen-er opened her mouth and her face was slightly red. However, she was a little nervous at this moment. She didn't expect Wang Xian to be so mysterious and powerful. I really didn't expect you to pick up such a mysterious young man, Yen-er. Get along well with him in the future. Grandpa will support you. An old man walked over and said with a burning passion in his heart. He was the leader of the branch family of the fox-patterned celestial race. However, his strength was only enough to ignite 3 wisps of divine fire. If his granddaughter could find a boyfriend with such a powerful background, it would be even more beneficial to their branch family. Hu Yan'er lowered her head and fiddled with the corner of her clothes. She raised her head and stole a glance at Wang Xian. Looking at his back, she could feel an air of superiority. This made her even more anxious. In the surroundings, the forces of the Divine Tiger Dynasty were looking in that direction and discussing in low voices. Are you guys going to the fallen Immortal Island as well? Wang Xian walked to the side and asked the three of them. It's the Dragon King. Dragon King, we have received news from the other clansmen that the leader wants us all to head to the fallen Immortal Island. The leader seems to have entered the island ahead of schedule. A dragon guard reported to Wang Xian. Ichimim, have you lost a lot of your dragon guards? How far have you progressed in your cultivation of the Heartless Sword principle? Wang Xian nodded and asked them. Out of the 2,500 dragon guards, we lost about 500 of them. However, we have already used the tree branches of the soul-returning tree to absorb their souls. Now, the three of us have reached a higher level in the Heartless Sword principle. I believe that we can fight 2 levels above us. The dragon guards replied. Oh, we can fight 2 levels above us without achieving perfection. Wang Xian revealed a look of surprise and satisfaction in his eyes. Out of the 3 dragon guards in front of him, 2 of them had lit up 3 wisps of divine fire and 1 of them had lit up 4 wisps of divine fire. In other words, they possessed the combat strength of 5 wisps of divine fire and 6 wisps of divine fire. It seems that the dragon guards are born to cultivate the Heartless Sword principle. Wang Xian said faintly. Thank you for your praise, Dragon King. The 3 dragon guards said with smiles on their faces. Brother Wang Xian, the formation is done. We are going over now. At this moment, Hu Yan'er's voice sounded. Coming? Wang Xian nodded and walked over immediately. Are you going to follow us all the way? Hu Yan'er saw Wang Xian walking over and asked him softly. What? Are you going to chase me away? Wang Xian looked at her with a smile. How can that be? I'm just... Hu Yan'er shook her head hurriedly. All right, let's talk about it after my injuries have fully recovered. Wang Xian interrupted her and said with a smile. Let's go then. Hu Yan'er nodded with a smile. Little brother, let's go. At the front seat, the great elder of the Huan celestial race greeted Wang Xian with a smile on his face. All right, thank you. Wang Xian looked at Hu Yan'er, nodded his head, and the 2 of them walked over. In the surroundings, everyone looked over from time to time. The group of disciples had already understood that the young man was no longer on the same level as them. Even Hu Yan'er had risen. Luckily, I didn't provoke that youth back then. If I had provoked him, I would have ended up in a miserable state. Hu Dongyang couldn't help but feel lucky. Luckily, he didn't lose his mind at that time. If he went to find trouble with that youth, then he would be in trouble. Everyone stepped into the array and headed towards the fallen immortal God Island. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.